to Experience Understanding Podcast. I'm Aaron Kessler, and this is Zach Mortimer. Is that okay? So you and I are still getting to know each other. Is it Mortimer? Is that the correct pronunciation?
Mortimer, or at least that's how I've always said it. I don't know.
What
I
three
didn't make it up.
focusing like that? Mortimer or Mortimer?
Mortimer. That's how I would
What's
normally
it mean?
say it.
What's the
Well,
etymology of your name, or
if
what's it
you
mean to
go
you?
back etymologically, it would be Mortmere, which is a place in England, but basically would be Mort would be death, and mere would be like a swamp. So it means like death swamp. It ain't that glorious. But the cool thing about it is that a really notable person was from Mortlake, which is functionally a Mortmere, which was John Dee, and like his estate was at Mortlake and stuff like that. So that's an interesting connection. I always thought it was
Totally.
like I used to joke around in my head with it. It was like Mortimer, and I have like kind of this like whatever like I would live forever complex, or like I would at least have more time than
Sure.
other people.
Yeah, totally. Interesting. So where did you grow up, or what was your like upbringing?
I grew up until I was 8 in like southern Arizona, Tucson, and then moved to a place called like the Tri-Cities, Washington, Richland,
Yeah.
which is
Yep.
it's like southeastern Washington. It's not that glorious, has nuclear reservation and chemical weapons depot and such, and that's why really anybody lives there. And nevertheless, lived there for what was that until 27? I think 27. Yeah, 27, 28. And then like a gypsy. So, but basically, as far as like growing up was, Arizona, younger, like bad part of Arizona, mom real broke, single mom and such. So like shitty part of Tucson, South Side Tucson, and like single wide trailer worth like 57 cents or something probably in like a real trashy trailer park, real nice. So nevertheless, then like we moved to Washington for a better life and lived in between, like to the north of us was a nuclear reservation and to the south of us was a chemical weapons depot. But my mom made more money. So I guess now we had a double wide and we lived in a nicer trailer park.
Right on. Hey, safety's key, man. I imagine that also means you got a higher class of people than comparatively, so it's probably safer.
Sort of.
No.
Sort of.
Okay, what was the community like without stereotypes or whatever? Because obviously you lived it, I didn't. Like, what was the actual community?
It was real random. It was real random. I mean, you weren't like. I mean, you weren't in the ghetto, Like, it wasn't really the ghetto. It was more ghetto than it really. Well, it operated more ghetto than it really was because a lot of the mentality there was trying to be something that it wasn't. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, like, well, like I lived in West Richland, and the main neighborhood in West Richland was called like the Brotherhood. And I mean, it actually it has some weird history to how it started or something like that has to do with like a bunch of segregation. I don't really remember what it is, but it has some weird history. And nevertheless, like we hung around there, and it was like very cliquish, and we were rebels, and we skateboarded and caused problems, and stuff like that. And there was very much so like like bad things going on around the area, like there is in pretty much any area that has enough people. And very much so, I guess I kind of like personally gravitated towards that stuff, just like mostly out of like rebellious spirit. Like I didn't want to do what I was supposed to do. That's like I just did the opposite of what I was supposed to do pretty much when I was younger. I had a pretty bad guidance system probably, but that's pretty much what I did though anyways. So like yeah, I mean it wasn't like a very nice place, but it was. People had more money than you should, but they did stupid shit with the money still. So
based on what you said, being rebel or having a bad guidance system, like so what obviously knowing what you know now and self-reflection and your own psychology and upbringing, like how would you describe that now, the path that you were on versus a path now that's more guided and less rebellious in the same ways or something?
In a certain way, I like, okay, so there's ways where now it's not so much maybe about like rebelling and there's a choice between it, but I was still very much so doing like the thing that I wanted to do, and the people that I gravitated towards, like I loved them. They were great. I still do. Like I still talk to tons of people from back then, and like there's so many people that I like from, like from southeastern Washington, for instance. But like I mean, I ended up moving away after my mom died, and just like went and did other stuff, and I've never really landed anywhere again, to be honest.
Yeah.
And so, like, I mean, I still love all of these people, but as I was already doing what I wanted to do, but a lot of what I wanted to do was just very counterculture. Then, like
Yeah.
after my mom died, it was really more like, I guess like I felt like I needed to do something with my life, and that started like kicking in all of a sudden when my mom died. But I didn't really know like what I wanted to do with my life. I really just like had
Yeah.
no idea. I had thought about it for tons of time, but I just really didn't know what I cared to accomplish. One thing I knew that I was like super psyched on in the moment was climbing rocks. Like I hadn't done it in my life, but I had watched like tons of videos, and I was like such an armchair climber. I was so psyched on the idea of this, and it was really like drawing me, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
after my mom died, I'm like, what are you gonna do, dude? Are you gonna like just get a job here and just live here? Are you gonna like go do something with it? Like, what are you gonna do? And I was just like, nah, I guess I'll just go climb rocks. Like I don't know what to do. Like I have
Yeah.
money. I have a car that I could go do that in. Like the girl I was together with at that point in time, she was psyched on the idea as well. And she was super cool and super supportive of it, and like helped through my mom's death a bunch of ways. And in a certain way, I was like, we've been doing it so serious for like 9 months trying to help my mom with this shit. Like, let's just go like have fun, right? And
Totally.
so she went and started doing that, but then just like never landed anywhere again. So like the guidance thing, I think I was always guided by what I wanted to do, you know?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
what I wanted to do before, I just really didn't know what I wanted to make of myself. And so I just knew like I didn't want to be the same as everybody else. So gravitated a lot towards like doing stuff other people weren't doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Totally. Interesting.
So
So, okay, and then with climbing, I know we've talked about that a little bit before. So, how did climbing become something more than just like a recreational activity to you? Like, what did you find in that you found deeper meaning in or experience?
I mean, even when I went beyond just like watching videos of it, I mean, there's inside of climbing culture at this time, there was very much so like this idealized person that was like the dirt bag, right? Like they just dedicated their life to climbing. They like lived in their car and they just climbed all the time. And I had all the stuff to
Mhm.
facilitate that and knew that I could live that way for a while. So like I just wanted to go and be that. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so I was already in this mindset that like it's not really going to be like a recreational activity. It's going to be like the centralized point of what I do with my life, right? And I
Yeah.
really didn't know why that was. I just was like, what are you going to do? Stay here and like get another job and play video games and like, what's going to happen? Or are you going
Yeah.
to like go do something? So I decided to go do something. And that was the only thing that really
Yeah.
was drawing me at that point in time. So, like on a deeper level, it definitely like I already understood the concepts of yoga, and as kind of the idea that really just a yoga is really like any kind of action can be understood as a yoga, really. So
Yeah.
climbing very much so became functionally a yoga for me, like a way that I was
Yeah.
integrating my thoughts and my body through the use of my breath and the balance of my mind. And so just through a lot of climbing, it really felt like doing a yoga, just like a ton though. I mean, like a ton. Like imagine if you just like quit your life and started doing yoga for like 8 to 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. And on the seventh day,
Right.
you like rested so that you could do the other 6 days. You know what I mean? That's like all you did.
Totally.
That's like all you did. You
Yeah.
did that, you ate, you slept. You did that, you ate, you slept. You know what I mean? Like
Cool.
that was
Yeah.
just the cycle because like I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life. I was having fun climbing rocks. We were meeting cool people. It was working out. We had the money to do it. It was fun. Nothing was stopping us from doing it. So we just like kept doing it. You know what I mean? Now, like
Yeah.
I like came back through the Tri Cities for a little while, like the first summer, and I didn't really know where to go because like well, really like a weather thing. Like everywhere was hot anyways, and I didn't really know a good spot at that point in time. I hadn't like, well, really honestly, I just hadn't learned the good places at that point in
Yeah,
time,
right.
because I
Yeah,
was like whatever, like 6 months into really doing this. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like I knew some good places to go, but I didn't know there's really like a circuit that people run that
yeah,
live that lifestyle really, and you very much so follow the weather. So like I didn't know really those places, and like also, well, in many ways, like I also wanted to like play video games, and I still had like certain parts of my old life that like I kind of wanted to do again. So we like chilled out in the Tri-Cities again for like that summer, you know what I mean? But then it was just like
yeah,
I was still like, oh, like the whole time I'm thinking like, okay, I ought to get back to climbing and these things, and it was like very important to me to progress myself through that at that point in time. And so
yeah.
I guess there is a place where it like changed, right? But it was already pretty serious from the beginning, just because I had like no idea what else I was doing. So I was like, man, I'll go climbing all the time. So it went from like
Right.
0 to like 99 volume, and then maybe got turned up to 100 later. You know what I mean? So
Right. Well, that seemed to work out for you.
in
So we got.
in the amount that it did, there was a point in
Go
time
ahead.
that, well, okay, so like I had set a goal in my mind that was like an impossible goal, and I reached that impossible goal, even though like it's not the hardest thing you can do in climbing by any stretch of the imagination. It's just like I never thought I would do that when I first started climbing. I was like, if I can ever
Yeah.
get to that, that's amazing. And I thought I was setting like a goal that was like I was shooting for the stars, right? But it ended up not apparently being the stars. But once I did
Okay.
that, the time that it aligned with, like it was like time that I should probably be getting a house and stuff. And hey, white crow wing. And it was time that I should probably be getting a house anyways. I was like getting low on money. I needed to figure out something that was actually sustainable. I wasn't making any money living sitting around climbing all the time. So like that happened at the same time that it was like the time to get a house basically. And so I ended up like being like, well, that makes sense. Like it's time, it's synchronistic. I'm gonna like put the rest of my money towards like having a position where I can get myself set for the future. So I went towards that, and
Yeah.
I really don't think that was the best choice for my life in a certain way. Hey Willow, it's
How
super
so?
good to see you again. I hope you're doing good too.
Yeah.
So like just because I did that out of practicality entirely, and things were going really good because I had been like just totally just like following what I wanted to do. And then I kind of made
Hmm.
a dramatic shift towards practicality. And oddly enough, like 3 weeks after getting that house, and I put like a bunch of money, like I didn't want them to ask me any questions or any of this. I wanted a house now. I saw the one that I wanted, and I just came in there and I was like, here's like $9,200 in cash. I want you to call the person that owns that and ask if I can just put this down on rent right now, and like we'll just like I'm good for a long time. Is that cool?
Hmm.
And he's like, he didn't want to do it because he's trying to sell the house, and he's like, well, I'll call him, right? And they were like, shit, yeah, he's got 9,200 cash right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So of course they took
Gotta
it,
talk.
right? And
Yeah.
so like the next day I was like in the house, you know what I mean? But then 3 weeks later, I go out to go climbing by myself, and I get like a fucking heinous back injury. Not like from a fall or anything, like everything went successfully. I got down from the boulder, sat down on my pads and shit, and all of a sudden just like stabbing pain through my chest, arms going numb, can't breathe, kind of think I'm having a heart attack. I'm like in the middle of the
Yeah.
forest by myself with like a bunch of stuff and both my dogs and all this stuff.
Yeah.
Nevertheless, after a little bit, it finally like it passed enough that I was like, I'll give it a shot and try and walk away. But like I had all this stuff to carry. Took me like 15 minutes to get back to my car from somewhere that really you could probably get back to the car for like 5 minutes, because I had, you know, I'd driven pretty close to the spot where I was anyways. And
Yeah.
nevertheless, like had to drive myself back. But like from that injury, it literally had like stabbing pain to breathe for like the next 3.5 months. So
Uh,
before even like every breath wasn't a stabbing pain, and then there was like many months after that before I was really like doing anything. So
yeah.
like this shut my life down, dude. Like it shut my life down basically. So
What with you we talked about yesterday too, everything being related to the psyche, where do you think all that stemmed from or came from?
interestingly enough, the vertebrae that shifted is the one that's like perfectly in line with the heart. And it's so interesting because it's like the problem is the opposite side from my heart, and it's right in line with my heart. So, and it's
Yeah.
totally to my mind because I stopped following my heart, right? So it's
Yeah.
like that one particularly really actually in a certain way, like kind of sparked my interest in like, are these physiological things like really psyche based? Because like I
Right.
saw this happen, you know what I mean?
Right.
And
No doubt.
so I must say also, the more I follow my heart, the less my back hurts now because still like if you feel my spine, like there's a vertebrae out of place. Like it's
Wow.
actually a problem, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So but it like if I'm not following my heart and I'm doing like shit I don't want to be doing, every
Yeah.
morning I'll wake up with like heinous backaches, have to stretch for like 30 minutes, 45 minutes, like or it will just
Wow.
hurt all day even if I don't do that. And like for
Yeah.
instance, like the last like 5 days of my life, like I woke up and like that's the last thing on my mind. Actually, this is the first time I've even thought about the idea that maybe my back would hurt for like
Cool.
days right now because like I've
Yeah.
really been just like ever since I like got into this idea, like I was gonna go back into like musical stuff and things like it just really like blossomed a whole thing out. Like that was like all the water that like some kind of lotus needed to like bloom all weird. It's been quite kind of a weird experience in my life, but nevertheless, it's been really like heart driven and really organic and what I want to do, and like I'm not having to spend time doing what I have to do, and
Yeah.
it's been like very very good. But like tons of energy, no back problems. I've had like a foot injury, which is also directly aligned to psyche things. Like that's got a
Right.
perfect correlation too with everything that goes around it. But
What is it?
that my foot had been hurt. I mean, it's had a problem for weeks now. Like I tore ligaments or broke it or something. I don't know. I don't go to the doctor because the doctor can't really help me anyway. I can't help myself. That's my belief. So I don't really go to the guy. If I had like a compound fracture or something, I was bleeding out from my leg, maybe you'd find me at the hospital. But besides that, probably not gonna happen. So
Right.
nevertheless, like it was definitely pretty screwed up, using crutches, doing all the things, elevated. I live with a great physical rehabilitationist, so they're working on my foot like every night. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
all these things are being done. But over the last 5 days, it's gone from like, I don't think there's a problem with it anymore, but I can't really use it to like, I bet you tomorrow I'll be walking normal because today I'm like real close to normal, but the progression has been
Yeah.
like super fast, you know? And it's really
Yeah.
weird. Like I'm literally like, because I'm not, there was all kinds of things. It's my left foot, and very much so in this kind of idea, like left foot injury in this case would mean that like things in my past are holding me back from moving, like from traveling, right? So
Mm.
I'm holding on to something in my past, inhibitions of doing things, worries about trying new stuff, like or like attachments to relationships or bonds. Like you could go all into psychic bonds and ancestral cords, and you could do whatever metaphor you want for this.
Right.
Any of
Yeah.
this stuff, something about that is holding me back from the thing that I actually want to be. I'm trying to move forward to it. I'm restricted, get the left foot injury because I'm not noticing those cords anyways. But there's been like a lot of like cord cutting stuff that's been done on a whole bunch of different levels, right? Like whether it's
Yeah.
just well, like distancing myself from certain relationships that I was spending time with in my life, just putting less
Mhm.
time into that so I can put more time into like the thing I want to be doing and the thing that will like get me a result and things like this because I was spending a lot of time on relationships with other people and not enough on like relationship with myself, for instance. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's totally makes perfect sense to me that it's getting like better very quickly while I'm letting go of those things and allowing myself to like really move into the future that I actually want to make for myself more. You know what I mean?
Right. Do you feel like so when you get injured in some way, shape, or form, when you especially not going to the doctor and sometimes things hurt bad and they can last for days or the pain can last for days, do you always then instead of thinking about and there's obviously ways to do visualizations for healing of the body, mapping out the body, looking at the body, but are you always looking more so instead of healing the physical pain, finding the connection to the psyche and your own psyche?
Well, okay, so it's like yes and yes. You know what I mean? Like
All right, yeah,
I think like
elaborate.
always in all ways, right? Like so if you have a physiological problem, you also probably have a psychological issue and a psyche-based issue behind it. So you can approach that then on the physiological level, the psychological level, and the psyche-based level. You know what I mean? And it's best to just like
Yeah.
go after it all ways. You know? So if you have a physical pain, like I'm not into like painkillers, pharmaceuticals, stuff like that, and like there's not really any like plants or anything like that that I engage with. They're like really big painkillers. I do think there's a huge value in like bringing down swelling. So I do use like anti-inflammatories sometimes, but well, always plants first if plants aren't enough because it's actually like something major or more major. This should all be prefaced by like I've been very blessed with my health. I haven't had major issues. Like a broken foot like ranks up there on my issues. I'm not some like chronic pain patient or something like that. Like there's a lot with that. Seek the help you need, you know what I mean? Like, but I haven't had it that tough, really. But the
Yeah.
things that I've gone through, I've been able to deal with on my own. I have like I think that there's a reason why I've been very healthy though, you know. So
And that is.
and so I try to approach it on all levels. Well, really because like I mean I had a good mom and so I didn't really end up with like a lot of psychological trauma or conditioning that a lot of people would. She was a very conscious person. She did a lot of work towards that she was very objective with me. She was very like the thing that so much that my mom taught me. I was like the most important things like I still use it all the time to this day. Like I can't find a single hole in it. Like she already had a lot of the solutions for me. She guided me that way. She was like I mean really I think she was too mothering, right? Like I think she was too good of a mother. I think she should have been a better herself and not worried about me as much. But like
That's
I
fair. Yeah, yeah.
benefit from her really like caring about me because she was really conscious about what she was doing and like but good about it too because she really like she gave me the space to be myself but like really was like there when like I really needed help. She was there with it, you know what I mean? And more so than
Yeah.
teaching me what to do, she was really focused around teaching me how to learn, you know. So like even if
Yeah,
I came
totally.
to my mom with a very direct question like how do I do this, she'd be like here's how you figure out how to do this right? Like she wouldn't tell me how
Yeah.
to do it, she would tell me how to
Cool.
figure out how to do it and then leave me to do it basically. So like because she personally believed that like me being able to learn was more important than like what she could teach me, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I was
Okay. Here's a
very
cool subject. What you said, there's a ton of stuff she's tied you. So tell the audience and people in the chat. Hello, we have I think 6 viewers. Great. Feel free to say hi in the chat or participate in the conversation. We love to pull people in and engage. But so with your mom, what are some things that stand out to you? A handful of things or a couple things that your mom taught you that have affected your whole life or you use to this day?
the primary like my mom hated assumptions like it was a problem. I mean this is one way it was a problem, okay? Like if you
All right,
assume
dude. No.
stuff it was a problem. So in a certain way like I have recognized there's not really any good place
What's up,
in
Nathan?
my opinion. What's up, man? There's not really any good place to assume stuff to still to my belief now because like you can just look for the answer, right? Like instead of assuming, recognize that there's a void in your knowledge and seek to fill that void in the knowledge with information that's actually there, not just like something that you made up so the void was gone, you know what I mean? Like there's
Yeah,
no
yeah.
reason to assume. So I still really buy into the idea that like you should never assume. It makes an ass out of you and me. And my
Yeah,
mom used
yeah.
to
I
say
learned
this
that
to,
in a
like, I
dangerous
remember my
one.
mom
Yep.
saying this to me when I was like 3 years old. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
Advanced mother.
mom immediately she was like, no assumptions. But then, in a certain way, it's because she couldn't really deal with them. Like she definitely had her stuff. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
she
Oh, there.
was
Nathan typed it out. Oh, yeah. We got banners too. We can always type stuff in. Perfect. Thanks for typing that out. We'll throw that up
yeah,
there.
exactly. Yeah.
So, it's
So
funny. Okay. I want to hear. Keep going. I'm trying to write it down. We'll jump back to it at some point. Assumptions versus intuition. But to keep going with things your mom taught you.
That's actually a super interesting topic. Other
I know. I
other
wrote it
things my
down. I
mom
wrote it
taught
down. I
me.
wrote it down. Yeah, other things your mom taught me. Let's go with that. I wrote the other one
Really,
down so we can come
the
back.
importance of like continually learning over knowing, you know, like
Yeah.
wanting to engage with learning. And so a place where a lot like in my work and my personal relationships and just my observations of what other people are doing, that I find that like the difference is really like the ways that they engage failing. And like for the longest time in my life, I just really didn't understand how they did it at all, because I was totally trained to just engage failure differently by the way that my mom raised me. And once I got to a place of where I was making my own decisions, it was already like pretty habituated in me. But
But
like,
before you blow by that, you were trained to raise or see failure differently. Elaborate or respond to
well,
failure differently.
really to like, instead of be afraid of failure, to seek out failure as a place where you can better yourself, as a place where you can learn more, and just to engage it more. Well, kind of like I already touched on, it's it's really just a place where you don't know something so you can get more information there. It's not, is you're not like a bad
So that
person because you don't know something, you know what I mean? Like
so
that was never in my
that's
life.
how your mom. Yeah. So it sounds like your mom taught you that, or something to the effect of the difference between that was a bad choice or that was a not a good choice, but you're not a bad person. So being able to learn from mistakes or things that are have negative consequences without taking an identity of being bad
Sure, I
when you
suppose there
fail.
was probably some, like some of her actions must have actually been sculpted like basically towards really doing that if I took the time to super analyze it. But
Sure.
a
Yeah. Yeah.
lot of it came through really just that like pointing towards like learning is really important. Learning is the thing that you're doing here anyways. You're always learning regardless. So
Yeah.
that was very helpful for me, that like I didn't, and I still definitely don't think I'm gonna get to some place where like I know all this stuff. Like I actually think it's impossible to know all this stuff functionally, because like even what
Right.
I would perceive as knowing all this stuff right now is not even close to all this stuff, you know. So like
Right.
I
Totally.
don't really think that's a thing that's gonna happen. And so I like, well, I got asked by somebody the other day, like, you know, uh, well, like I want to not know. Like I don't. I seek out not knowing. I seek out not
Yeah.
being able to do it. I seek out the failure, and that's really just like my mode of operation. And she taught that, right? Like the failure is not a
Yeah.
bad thing. It's a place where you get better, you know.
Yeah.
And that engagement to failure, I think. Well, I've come to, you know, I got all kinds of quips for everything I've done, but like, you know, that engagement with failure, like success is the like the capstone to a mountain of failure, right? Like you have all these
Yeah.
failures, and then you finally get to this point where you're like, ooh, boom, I'm successful at it. Like I'm good. This is the thing, you know. So really, it's about like reiterating through those failures as quickly as possible. So I'm very eager to engage them. That's just the way I've been tuned. And she
Yeah.
tunes that by tuning the idea that like learning is really paramount. It's not really about like knowing everything. Just like keep learning shit.
Yeah.
If you want to know something new, learn about it. If you don't know something about something, you need to know something about it. Learn about it.
Yeah.
Like it was just always the answer, and teach me how to learn about stuff until I had enough resources
Totally.
to be able to do that on my own.
Yeah, it's funny. So my dad, my dad, there's a handful of things that he said to me growing up that just always really, really stuck with me. One of them was that between 0 and 10, how many options are there? Right? You could count the numbers 9, 10, whatever, but that there's an infinite amount of options because between 1 and 2, there's 1.1, 1.001,
Sure.
1.036, like all that stuff. So
Yeah.
reading that between the reading between the lines or knowing, like part of that just being an ingrained belief system that literally anything is possible. Like listen to this. This is funny. So when I was coming out of high school, I was really passionately Christian because of my experiences. Um, it's actually a cool dynamic. I'm trying to think how much I go into that while staying on topic. Well, I was going to this the Christian school for the first time, Christian University in Kirkland, Northwest University, And it was the first time being around other like-minded people. I was with a public school before, so we'd actually pray before class. And cool, it's not like just stifled religious prayers to me. This was like organic, real. These are other just normal people that happen to be Christians too, that engage it in a way that's part of their daily life, not just a thing they do on Sundays or whatever. And so to be around those people, and I remember during orientation, the campus, whatever, the guy who runs that and gives the pep talk, you're there with your parents and whatever. And he made a comment like about the state of mind that we're in coming to the school, and back in, and you guys remember that, talking to the parents when you felt like you were going to change the world or you could change the world, and everybody chuckled, right? I remember in my entire being, I'm like, what the fuck is so funny? I am
What's
gonna
so
change the
funny?
world.
Yeah.
Really, and it's like, why is that funny? Why is that like accepted? Ah ha ha, people, you're gonna change the world. No, you're not. You're just
Right.
gonna get beat down, get a 9 to 5, have 2.5 kids and a white picket fence, and hope you're happy.
Right.
It's like that's the expectation, really. But I think everybody wants to be happy, but it just looks differently to everybody, and we don't know what we want a lot of times. But yeah, kind of that it's just the same dynamic that tied in somehow. Oh, things. How did that tie in? Things my dad told me, which is things your mom told you: learning, failure, infinite amount of
0 to
possibilities
10.
between 0 and 10.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how connected, but there's an anecdotal story. So,
Well, I think at one level, and this might have been what you were talking about, with those infinite amount of possibilities, like that metaphor, even if you think you see the whole number line 0 through 10, there's always like another separation that you probably don't see yet, right? Like another compartmentalization or division that you could break it down to, another precision or something. So you're like, but one way that I look at this is that like really like all numbers are actually just an approximation. Like
yeah,
when we say that there's one of something, like it's never really like one. It's only really like one unto itself. So especially when we get into like actually measuring stuff, like, oh, it's 1 inch. Like, how often is it exactly 1 inch? You know what I mean? Like, and I mean
right,
exactly to the micrometer, 1 inch,
right,
right?
right.
Like, and
And how
beyond,
much does it matter?
actually.
Right.
It
Well, and how much does it
doesn't
matter?
matter. That's the thing. It doesn't matter. So it's totally good to just be like, yeah, 1 inch, 2 inches. Like, it's totally good.
Yeah.
And now
Well, and also,
approximation is fine.
well, and also subject to the context, right? So if you're working out machine engine parts that need to be down to the thousandth of an inch, then the inches matter. But as general
Sure.
rules of measurement, I think it's the same as like seeing things from a 3D level and seeing things from a higher perspective or higher dimensional levels. Like on the dichotomy, or holding both perspectives and being able to apply them contextually. So for
Mhm.
example, if you're witnessing someone getting mugged or raped or something going on, you don't just check out of your responsibility as a human being to stop someone else from getting assaulted against their will and think to yourself a statement that may also be true, but in the context it's not necessarily relevant. So in the context, or in an objective truth, maybe on a higher level, they chose to incarnate here and have that experience because they had for whatever reason, X, Y, and Z, et cetera, et cetera, et
Sure.
cetera. So there's like
Well,
a
you
sacred
say
neutral.
that you don't do that, and I think that like that's the moralistically right thing to say. But
Yeah, fair
that
enough.
is just a choice that you make, right? Like, and
Yeah,
what
yeah,
makes your choice to be moralistically right any better than somebody else's choice to be moralistically wrong? Like, that's a dualistic little thing you got
right,
going on there. Like,
totally.
is it
So like,
actually wrong, or is it a thing that we have agreed as like kind of a whole it's wrong? Like, don't get me wrong,
right,
if somebody's like getting mugged and stuff and I'm probably gonna do something about it, and like I'm going to
yeah,
personally, personal choice. But I'm not doing that because I need to do that, or because like that's what a person does. I'm doing that because that's my
totally.
choice. That's my choice based
Yes.
off of what I want to do. So is it
Oh,
actually better? And like, I'd like to hear anybody's input on this, because I think this is a really good philosophical question. Is it
totally.
actually better to act morally good than it is to act morally evil, or is that just what we believe? Right? Like
Yeah, that'll start some questions. Yeah.
the opposite belief functionally could be true, I feel like. You know, I don't necessarily think it's right. I just think it's just as true as the other side if I really get objective about it, you know?
Right. I think so. Okay, how many ways to go with this? I totally agree with you saying, and I'm glad the way you articulate those things so it can help expand the understanding within that paradigm or expand the paradigm or the metaphor. Um, so it's not so much so that I guess the bigger point in that is people weighing the options from all perspectives. So to dissociate and only choose, I'm choosing to just believe the
Sure.
only one that matters, and that's fine. You're in a universe of one to some extent. That's true. If you find value, the only perspective that matters is a five-dimensional perspective or whatever, and this is meant to happen, and it's not cool, it's not good. You know, you wouldn't want it happening to you and your little avatar at this moment, but it's whatever your choice is.
Do you
And
think you can actually see all perspectives though? You say you want to look at it from all perspectives, but like, is that even possible?
right. But I mean, well, probably not, right? Not every single perspective, but multiple perspectives to be able to
When
make
is
a
enough
decision. Do you feel
enough?
is around it?
You know what I mean? When is enough
Infinitely
enough?
subjective. Infinitely
And
subjective.
technically, when you have enough, like say it takes you 37 different perspectives. Well, technically now your 37 different perspectives, by virtue of being enough, have become one data set of
Yes,
perspective that led to a decision or an opinion.
totally.
So they're
Yeah,
now one. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
now all of a sudden, by virtue of magic, basically 37 became one. These are all arbitrary numbers, but the idea is that
Yeah,
like when is
totally.
enough enough? You know, is there really a need to
When you
engage
find
with a
one,
system? Well, like,
yeah,
is there a need to engage with a system where I take all kinds of perspectives into account, or
yeah,
is like one good enough? Like I could just be
totally.
navigated by what I want and what I think is right, and that's the way I'm supposed to operate. Because at the end of the day, like how many perspectives are you supposed to take into account? Is it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 25?
Right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
How many people am I supposed to think about? Because I've spent a lot of time thinking about this and trying to do it,
Yeah, yeah.
and I can like try to hold a lot of people in my mind and take into account where they fit into it and a big old flow chart of how everything
So
affects
how do you
everybody.
think that applies? How do you think that applies internally? So not just external perspectives, but your own internal perspectives on a
The
decision
same
point
way,
before you
it's
make a decision.
completely fractal. Like how many do you need? You know?
Right. So do you feel okay? So I feel like you're saying in principle, and I agree with you. It sounds like maybe more that the point is living in a constant flow state. It's not about constantly logically assessing and engaging and weighing the best option in whatever that context means is best to you. It's more being present in any given moment or decision, so that you're in a flow state or stillness or coherence. So those decisions just are a byproduct of that,
If you want to
as opposed
call
to
it
having to
flow
think.
state, but I think in certain ways, like to a lot of people, flow state kind of insinuates like an active non-doing, like it's all just coming about. And I
Mhm.
don't really necessarily think that's the thing, like so I wouldn't really call it that. I would say that
Okay.
like make a conscious choice to
Yes.
interface with the world around you in the way that has the most likely chance to whatever your perception is of getting the outcome that you think should be in the world. I
Have
mean,
you
like,
seen have you seen Rick and Morty? Do you watch Rick and Morty?
yeah.
Yeah, okay, cool. So I just found it because it's been around a little while, right? I just came across it. Nate introduced it to me, I don't know, last year or whatever. So I've been through all the seasons a few times, and what is it? I think it's in the first season, but it's where time splits, right? They end up splitting time, and the Schrodinger's cats are outside the garage and everything. And ends up getting the Rick ends up getting the whiteboard to explain to them why they're in the situation that they're in. He's like, this has been a long time coming, and why they're so uncertain that they have nothing to be uncertain about. The whole thing is to tell them, like, what are you so uncertain about? Because their uncertainty keeps creating these fractal timelines.
Yeah, yeah, uncertainty creates more uncertainty.
Right. So is that,
uh,
that sounds like that's a dynamic of what you're saying. So being in a place where you just make decisions with certainty, it's just, not that knowing, not that knowing that you could be wrong, or in some ways you're likely to be wrong because you're doing the best you can with the awareness that you have at the time, but actually with certainty making decisions instead of constantly
I'm
calculating.
I just think we basically need to use like our own heart and our own, which is another way for saying what we want, what we think is
Yeah.
the good thing to do in the moment, as basically the primary guidance system. rather
Dude, have
than
you
like
seen?
taking in a lot of perspectives. Like at the end
Yeah.
of the day, you just pick the one that you want anyways. Like Jordan
Have-
Peterson, I think it is, talks about this with like the idea of like the like a coin flip thing. You know what I mean? Like if you're
Yeah.
trying to choose between two things, simply flip a coin, and the one that you want it to be in the air, that's which one you do.
Huh,
You don't actually
I haven't
wait
heard
for it
that.
to land on anything because it's not about doing that. It's about creating a moment where you know what you want to do.
Totally. Yeah, I like that a lot.
But really,
Yeah.
like, you shouldn't need to flip a coin for that. I mean, let's face
Right.
it, you don't need to keep a coin around for that shit. You could just be like, what do I really want to do? You could
Well, it's like
in your mind visualize flipping a coin if you can really put yourself in that. If you need that, like, I don't think you need that either. I think you could just get
right.
to a point where you're like, what do I really want to do?
So those to me are like kind of what we were talking about yesterday, and what I would call placebo belief catalysts, right? That you are the placebo, so they help catalyze your own awareness of self. That you create your reality. You don't need a coin to do it. The point was you choosing in the air because you're just tuning into yourself
Sure.
to find what you actually want to do.
The coin's functionally a ritual that gives you confidence that the thing that you're doing is going to create the space.
Totally. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a great way to say it.
It's not really necessary. None of
Right,
these
right.
tools, like my own personal belief, if we're going to really
Yeah.
be cut and dry, this is why I accept every single possible story and
Right,
every
right.
single I have people come to me and they're like, I do this kind of healing. I've been around this stuff for like 25 years. I'm like, I have never heard of that. Let's hear all about it because I'm sure it works great. Because like it's not about that. Like
Yeah.
people do rituals, a whole gamut of them, whether it's the style of healing you do, what you visualize, the incense you burn, all this other stuff, to create a confidence that they're really going to be able to engage with it in a way that they're going to be able to channel their focus to it entirely.
Yeah. Right on.
So,
Hi,
I mean,
Sam.
if you got to actually carry a coin, that's cool. Hi, Sam. How are you tonight?
And
Colin
this
says a
is
decision, choice, behavior isn't right or wrong. It is just a decision, and it is your responsibility to make it right for you. And functionally, I couldn't agree more. That's the whole thing. Like, I'm really just attacking the concept of right and wrong. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like, there's
Dude.
not really a right and wrong. It's subjective, right?
Okay, you keep chatting for a second. I got something to totally add to that. But right and wrong. So not subjective or dialogue on that.
Yeah, I mean, like, yeah, it's pretty straightforward. You know, like right and wrong is subjective. You literally just pick one. So we have to
Okay,
we
yeah,
have
subjective. That makes sense.
where I think most people are quote unquote out of alignment, or they're trying to find part of themselves, or they want to connect with another version of themselves. What they're really just like missing is that they're not just accepting themselves for what they want to do. And there's a whole slew of reasons for this, and I've been in the places myself, and I still am in certain ways, and like I understand there's always a reason why you think it's justifiable. That's just a reason why you think it's justifiable, though. You know, like
Totally. Makes
it
sense.
is if you think it is, and if you don't think it is, then it isn't. And this is really why the system completely balances itself. If everybody just does what they want, you know, I mean,
Yeah.
like you're not
I
gonna
mean,
do what you want. If I tell you that literally you can do anything that you want, are you gonna do anything that's really that bad? You know,
right. Well, okay, what would you say
most
to, because
people
I just
aren't.
know, yeah, most people aren't. So then what would you say to the ones who are like, that's their excuse to go riot or to go hurt somebody or whatever? What would you say to that
How
dynamic?
do you think that's gonna work out for them?
Yeah, actually get arrested or whatever. It's
If
still going to go bad for them.
everybody else, including the people that are rioting, do what they want, some subset of people decide to start doing things that take property from other people, destroy things, cause a ruckus, hurt people, etc. The other people who would normally be docile and civil, what are they now going to want to do?
Yeah.
Now they're going to want to do something about that. And then this other force mobilizes against them. Yeah, oh my God, now a war breaks out. Guys, newsflash, there's already a war here. If you don't think there's like a war already here, you're probably just like one of the ones that are lost. And you're probably not even watching this. So, like, it's not a big deal. It's okay because that's part of the thing. You know, everybody has kind of their storyline for it's the unconscious individuals, it's the NPCs, it's the whatever. There's stories are all over out there. Like
Mhm.
Some people, it doesn't matter, like, because it's not about the people. It's a subjective polarity in the long run, this whole right and wrong thing, to get back to what I was actually originally talking about. And
Yeah.
so is there, like, and this all stems off of you saying that, like, that if somebody's getting mugged, well, you're gonna do this. Well, you're going to,
Yeah, totally.
but like, not everybody's going to. And is there any problem with the fact that they don't do that? I mean, not really. You know,
Right.
so like some dude is getting mugged. He's like a 6'5" dude, well built, looks like he can defend himself. He's getting mugged by 4 other dudes with guns, and you're like a 5'3" female who's never fought a single fight in your life. Should you go do something about that? Like, no, you maybe like call somebody, but you shouldn't do anything about that. That's gonna go bad, you know?
Right. Well, then those are infinitely subjective too. So it's like a general framework for to convey the concept of value and additional perspectives, and also the where it can be imbalanced in additional perspective, potentially in certain dynamics. But it's infinitely subjective. It's more the internal awareness of, I guess, I mean, what you were getting to too, just your own heart's desire response. What's in right alignment for your core being, that if you look back on whatever decision you made, there is no regret. You made the decision that you knew was right for you in the time.
Yeah, you gotta get the tattoo right here, like in that movie where it says "No regrets."
What's that from?
I don't even. It's what is that movie called? Somebody might probably know. Somebody will know. Like, say in the comments. But I would watch that movie again. This movie is funny.
Yeah,
Some
yeah,
guy has a tattoo right here, and it's supposed to
yeah,
say "no regrets," but it's misspelled. And when he shows it to the guy's like, "Really? No regrets? Not even just one? Not even one little letter?"
yeah,
You know? And like,
yeah. No doubt. Yeah, funny. Yeah. Okay, so this book, Genesis, Zen, and Quantum Physics. Oh, he's the ring light in there. That's funny. Where is
okay,
it? There we go. But this is it goes back to the original Paleo Hebrew and the way they interpret it based off more of the symbols, and it goes through the first 3 books of Genesis, verse by verse, but with a different, more
it's
true to
called
some
"We're
of
the
the original
Millers."
meanings.
That's what it's called. I knew somebody would know.
Oh, the movie?
Yeah, we are the Millers.
Oh,
It's
okay.
actually a pretty
Right on.
funny movie, must say. Anyways, Genesis
Yeah.
and Zen.
Okay, yeah. So, what's interesting is that when you think about the word, so it says that when God created this day, that He looked at and saw that it was good. Right?
Hmm.
He spoke and said, "Let there be light." Saw that the light was good, or that He created the days and the stars, and it was good. If you actually look at the original meanings, a much more accurate way to say that for good and bad, and that is functional and dysfunctional. He didn't look at the creation and see that it was slamming into each other and killing planets and running his timeline
Yeah, it's
simulations and
work versus doesn't work, not like,
yeah.
oh, yes, everything is positive or whatever you're
Right.
saying
Well,
good
yeah,
is.
or it's like, well, it's not morally good is the point. It functions. It
My
works.
whole
A
approach to
working
life is
machine.
about it functional. Like, that's my whole jam. Is it
Right.
functional? Like, get it to
So
functional. You know,
so
I
think
don't care
about
what the
that.
story is. Just make it
Right.
functional.
And so so it's interesting thinking about that replacing. So then it's like, okay, so is it in this moment or in this dynamic, is it functional or dysfunctional for me make these choices or pursue this dynamic or this relationship or friendship or whatever? Is it functional or
Hmm.
dysfunctional to my goals, whatever they might be, and are they in alignment with my value system, whatever that might be? And so at least
Sure.
leaves a really open framework to me. So that's how I've seen it for a while. It's more way within that dynamic. And then other than that, it's a nuance and play and language. And I'm like you, like whatever works for you. That's why I love finding new things that are just cool, that excite my heart and make me feel childlike, which I do
Yeah.
believe is the gateway to ourselves in a lot of ways, no matter how you express it, just that internal state of like joy or excitement at things in life.
Yeah. Yeah, I think like the whole way that I mean, I don't think we ever get off of the, for lack of a better word, spiritual path. Like whatever we're
Mhm.
doing is that path. You know what I mean? There's not like a right or a wrong way you're supposed to be going. But if we want to like really engage ourselves, I think the most effective way to do it is to really just go guided off of like our best choice in the moment. Don't take other people's opinion on it. really, because it will lead you into troubles here and there, but those troubles will teach you about yourself, and it'll teach you stuff that you need to know, and that refines itself out, and the process actually like already works. Like, you're not supposed to get somebody else's diagram that kind of lacks context to your life, even though you can find tools from other people. And if you're drawn to like learning about tools that they have, or learning about more tools, you can like work with people or read books, go to seminars, whatever, to like
Right.
learn about other things. But really, at the end of the day, it's just about like following your heart around. And when you don't follow your heart around, it goes bad, and when you do, it goes good. Like, it seems to,
Right.
I mean, like, really, I think it's that simple. You
Totally.
know,
Yeah. Yeah.
we make it
Yeah. Which
super hard for some reason. I really don't know, understand that.
it's true, and it's funny because like there's things you can hear in life and phrases or Bible verses or things that make some sense and they make sense, but or in one way or another. But then you come back to them later, and it's like the question I asked you the other night. But like, what do you think happens after you die? Right? You're like, holy shit! That because again, it was thinking about it in a slightly different way or in a different moment, add a new
Yeah.
layer or some added level of additional awareness or something.
Sure. Yeah. And I mean, I'm still thinking about this question. I'm not really. It's so weird to me that like I really just didn't have, because I'm actually like kind of tickled with myself that like the answer is so true at like I just don't care. I just
Yeah.
don't care what happens after that. Like, I haven't thought about it at all, and like I'm looking for the answer now. I'm not really sure why, just
Yeah.
because I know I don't have it. But I know
Yeah.
already that like I don't actually care. Some other thing.
Okay, here, let's organically dive into this. And so like so I came from because I'm in a similar boat. Like on one hand I don't care. I guess I care a little. I have interest. It doesn't hold a tremendous amount of weight in my decision making because of the things you dove into. We were talking about that off air the other night. But so I came from a dynamic where I believed in a very real hell, right? In a very real
Sure.
heaven that people went to because and it's not because God hated them. And you begin to really the dialogue. There's a totally different paradigm where you can see God in the Bible as a good father through the whole dynamic in really
Oh
profound
yeah.
ways, protecting those that are his, loving the ones who are going to hell. But it says even that in the Bible that the hell wasn't made for men; it was made for Satan and his angels, the ones who fell. Like so that
Sure.
the point is they convey that that God doesn't he loves you, he doesn't want you to go to hell. This is the gift, right? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But either way, regardless, some people in that dynamic are going to spend eternity in hell. So I was very much raised in that. So as I was having my own experiences and learning, expanding my own understanding, and the core value system being I want truth and I want what's real, and having to let go of the things that didn't line up with that
Hmm.
and my own heart's truth. Um,
Yeah.
so going through that, and then also with entheogen experiences, and just but even before the entheogens, like I feel like this is important. I haven't been afraid of death for a very very long time. When I found Christ in me or that dynamic, I just knew though whether it's heaven, it didn't matter. And as I understood Christ was in me and just those sovereignty dynamics, I just knew that wherever I'm going or whatever it works, however it works for people, I haven't had near death experience. I haven't had some kind of life review or any crazy thing like that. So all those make sense to me, archetypally,
Hmm.
metaphorically. Maybe I'll have something similar, but it's whatever. I don't
Not
know.
even with psychedelics, you haven't had anything that you felt like was a life review.
Well, okay. So what's interesting, so much of the psychedelic dynamics are very, they're deeply internal knowingnesses and massive metaphorical and energetic overlays to things. They're not, a lot of people have conversations with, whether you think it's a projection of your own psyche or entities or all of the above and anything in between, and I've had different dynamics, but a lot of it comes to
Sure.
me, I feel like on some level anthropomorphized. So I do feel a resonance with the entheogen as its own consciousness simply because it exists, let alone it
Yeah.
being a realm of frequency or dimension that other people have participated in. So there's that entanglement and connection, and there's a lot of dynamics there in that regard. But when, for example, like cannabis, that to me is Lady Cannabis. Like when I tune into her, I feel like she's like a 14-year-old girl. That energy, like an eternal
Mm.
14-year-old girl in some level. Like there's just kind of this more.
That's
It's totally
actually
different.
super weird that you say that with like just
Well,
personal, not because I've ever recognized it as that, but because of just like my own like kind of stuff I still work through about like with my inner child and such. There's
uh-huh.
like it's a right around that time that I ever started consuming cannabis in my life. and I've
Sure.
like never really stopped. But since I've gotten like kind of more aware of also kind of like this abandonment of my feminine traits at a certain point in time, like
Yeah.
as I become more aware of the implications of that, I've actually like engaged with it less and less, and like been less and less interested in it as I like kind of integrate what I see to myself and kind of my own storyline as like, well, this progressively getting older kind of feminine child inside of myself
Yeah.
that like it's just it integrates a whole bunch of traits. Like when you think about like what a young girl would do in her life, right? And I'm not saying
Yeah.
like specifically the clothes and shit, but like caring whether or not you're like beautiful, or caring
Yeah.
about my body, or liking pretty things, or liking to put
Yeah.
stuff in pretty things that you would attribute to a female like that.
Yeah.
There's a version of myself that's like progressively getting older as I integrate more and more feminine traits into myself. And as that
Totally.
process is happening, my drive to engage with cannabis has been pretty much proportionately decreasing, honestly. That's where I kind of went like, whoa, actually, like that's pretty fucking proportionate. Yeah.
Totally. Wow, interesting. Because that's on one hand an anthropomorphized age comparison to a human, right? It's a plant. It's consciousness, entity, I think, but
Sure.
it's, but it seems to fit, and that's interesting that you say it that way. And then what's interesting too is I tune into that. Okay, so a lot of people smoke cannabis, right? A lot. I mean, most people throughout generations, music people, whatever. And so I started tuning into her and um, uh, asking her like who some of her favorites were, who she favorite people she liked, and one of the people that came up was we were listening to some George Carlin or something, and asked about George Carlin, right? And I
Hmm.
and felt her just like she's really offended by something he had said at some point, so she didn't
Yeah.
really like him, right? I could feel that difference. And then who is the other one brought up, and then asked San Pedro. I was tuning into San Pedro just because I've had that in my system, my physiological system before. I know what that frequency is. I was tuning into that and asking what San Pedro thought about George Carlin, and just saw and felt San Pedro just busting up laughing, just like kind of like rocking chair, just busting up laughing, right? And San Pedro seen as like the grandfather, and ayahuasca like the mother or grandmother in that dynamic too. So
So,
I think that's really interesting with mushrooms too. Like recently, on experience, as they came to me, anthropomorphized, I guess, but it was an understanding. It was the mushrooms speaking to me, and they're almost like little dancing mushrooms. But that's just in my own mind's eye. Like it's, I get it. Like to me, it makes sense. It's not like it's a completely external entity is fearing me as mushrooms. It's like I don't know. It's a mix of all of it to me. It's internal. It's inside of me anyway. It's just anyway. But I remember them saying, being very grateful because they really appreciated how I gave them words, the ways that I gave words to my experiences with them, the way I would articulate and
mm,
try to process and find expressions that felt worthy of the experiences I was having,
yeah.
and have as I go through. That's why it's still building relationship with me and really finding words and expressions. Like we were kind of diving into the whole melty thing and fluidic space and all that on Lucy and
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, I spent like that was my whole. Honestly, I don't think I would have engaged with psychedelics that much if it wasn't for that like logical parsing of what's happening in this space. How do I turn it into a function in my real life? Like that was my whole jam. Anytime I've ever been engaged with them, really is like I literally feel like I'm like purposely like going and getting data to bring it back. Like, can I just do that? Like
right.
that's really the whole reason. But in a certain way, I understand how it seems to me now that like that's pretty much everybody's interface with stuff like that in one way or another. They're either going into themselves and getting some piece of themselves that they haven't been bringing with them, or they're going out and getting some new perspective, or every way that you could possibly slice it, it's the same. I'm
Yeah.
curious, Samantha, when you say dreaming of being a good person or caring mother, like are you meaning like you actually have dreams about that, like while you're asleep, or that you are currently like doing that in your life? Because if you're currently doing that in your life, you are a good person. That's guaranteed. And if you want to be a caring mother, you are. It's just in the ways that you are, and maybe there's some ways that you think you're supposed to be, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're supposed to be that way. Only if you don't feel like you're doing what you should be doing. And then, I mean, really, the answer is do those things instead. Make the time for them and do them. So, And really, in the long run, if you're dreaming about it, it's leading to a fact that you're probably subconsciously or unconsciously feeling like you're not actually doing those things. When really you have all the capability to be those things. You just have to want to be those things, which tunes you into the frequency of it, and then allow your emotions to guide you towards doing that through making decisions that are in line with what you're trying to generate. It's actually pretty easy. So, I enjoyed microdosing mushrooms and concealer. Yeah, energetic fields. Yeah, it's interesting that these pop out with everything, like everything. You know, if you get too tired, these start happening. But then if you go to like a university in the modern day, they'll tell you that like auras don't exist.
Like they have machines that do the aura readings and stuff now, the Kirlian photography and some other things that they measure all that. They've been doing that.
I mean, I literally know someone who was going to a university in Sydney in Australia, literally like just a year ago, and they were like specifically told this by a professor very early in class. So it's not like it's like old data or something. That's like 2019 data. This is stuff that's being said inside these things. I know the machines exist. I know this makes no
Right.
sense. It's crazy.
And they're very variable pretty locally. I mean, they're pretty around, which is nice. So even though it may not be endorsed, even though I know, I think it's Harvard has an energy medicine department. There's a couple, I don't know if Dean Radin's one of them, but there's a lot of, went through going through one of the books recently, or I mean, recent history. But they're doing a lot of stuff on campus, like showing the reality of the psychic dynamic, but it's in a way that's just kind of under the radar because it is there. And they are doing it with like the credentialed, dynamic behind it. So I don't know. That's just, it's inevitable for that rises more to the forefront of, people's awareness. Let's see. There's several here. All right, you pick one, Zach. Throw it up.
I understand what you're saying now about in response to cannabis. Why Liz, I think I do. You're saying that kind of cannabis carries that spirit along with it, that idea of the caring person or the and or mother. Is that what you're saying? And shout out to caring for 4 people and then still trying to better yourself. Like that's a task. I admire that. Yeah. I mean, like in certain ways, I feel like there's very much so like a feminine plants, masculine plants, and I mean this even goes over into synthetics and stuff. Although most of them are masculine, but nevertheless, like those feminine ones, which cannabis definitely is. Yeah. Okay. Right. Like it's okay. Yeah. I totally understand. Like it's like a 14-year-old that's dreaming of being a good person and a caring mother. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, that's another layer to it.
Yeah, like it wants to do it, but it doesn't really know how yet. Whereas, like, I mean, ayahuasca, it's got a really good idea to the point where, like, you think that its format of mothering is, like, too rough, perhaps. But really, actually, that's what nurturing is, and you don't get it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. Frank talks about in all his ayahuasca experiences where, if things get too rough, you can always call the mother in, call her in, and
Sure.
she'll come like pause things or be with you and like, help you through it.
Yeah,
You're right.
well,
You gotta
it's
go
just a
through it.
concept. It's just a concept.
Yeah.
You're
Right.
made by one.
It's,
They're made by one. Another
Yeah.
one. They're made by another one. Another one. Another one. Like I mean,
okay.
genetically, you're connected just to billions of
So-
mothers. You know.
So the thing my experiences with Aya, even when I started a microdose protocol, I haven't gotten back around to it for doing Aya and taking Cappy and then taking just smaller amounts, based on part of the dynamic of obviously different microdosing, mushrooms and LSD and a lot of different things. So even a sub-psychoactive effect having some kind of benefit that just isn't maybe commonly known now because I just haven't really heard anybody doing those things.
Sure.
But also being able to put even though yes we could tune in through meditation, again there's something to putting the physiological frequency and resonance into the vessel, even if it's just an additional placebo belief catalyst, right? But the feeling though, even when I was microdosing it, but especially under the actual sessions, it felt like a mother or the universe, if you will, but mother seems more at least anthropomorphized and emotionally connecting. But it really felt like that, hugging every cell of my body, every cell of my being, beyond just the body, but like,
Sure.
I'm trying to give it some word images. So it was cool. It was me and Nate and another friend of ours in the summer. And he had a big love sack. So at one point we had these like I had just gotten this blanket that's got like a cape on it and little like hands for squirrel arms or something, and like but it was a blanket thing. So I was cuddled up in that. He jumped on, and we were all kind of cuddled up on there, and just it was just awesome. We did that for a little while, and then things transition and whatever. But man, I don't know how else to explain it, man. Weighted blankets. Have you ever felt a weighted blanket?
Weighted blankets. We talked about this at one point in time. I have like a bunch of blankets on my bed right now, even, but I haven't ever had an actual weighted blanket.
Okay, it is worth a try because it can feel like the same thing I just described. Hold on. Like the same thing I just described, but from the outside in, like coming down. Like I'm definitely considering it an essential part of my trip kit or for shamaning kit or whatever. Because, dude, friend of ours in the Fearless group, Joanna, when I was over there, she put that on me right in the middle of a mushroom dynamic experience, and it made everything a million times better. I ended up buying one the next day, and I've been sleeping with it every night, and it feels so settling to your nervous system. I know it's something that they recommend for people Asperger's or autism. A lot of times that can be very stilling and calming, and so I don't know, it's not for everybody, and there's different weights and whatever, but it is something I use daily, and I'm really glad I got.
Did you have problems falling asleep? That's why you ended up getting it? Is that? I think that's like why people usually get them, right?
Well, or just anxiety in general. Yeah, see, love weighted blankets.
Yeah, see, I have neither of those things at all. Like, I'm the least anxious person ever. Yeah, these people are psyched on them. I mean, I'm probably missing out here. I know I'm probably missing out.
Instantly feels like home. Totally, man. So no, I can sleep anywhere, and I can go to bed because of my borderline narcolepsy disorder. Should I got my
You gotta carry around your weighted blanket all the time, just in case you fall asleep.
No, I can fall asleep anywhere. It's just extra special that I can be in my bed, in my way. Look in my bed. So I've got right now I've got a Magnetico sleep pad. It's one of it's the only magnet mattress engineered, so it's only projecting the south polar facing fields towards your body, and if you're 4 inches above, and it recreates the.
Do you always sleep in a spaceship, or just some of the time?
Whenever I sleep at home, man. But I sleep at least 1 to 2 nights a week, usually. Sometimes more. I sleep.
What direction does your head face while you sleep?
Right now, east to west, and that's.
Which way is your head pointing?
West.
Interesting.
Tell me. Do it. No, tell me. I've got all my intuitive processes that are always in motion with Wyoming.
Can you just turn around on your bed? East is the way to go. Simply put.
Okay.
Yeah. East.
All right.
Yeah.
Done deal. Yeah. So I was going to switch.
Ayurveda says east. I mean, east to west is the way to go. Definitely not north to south, according to like Ayurveda and stuff. But if you're going like esoterics and stuff, it makes sense also. Like, well, west and stuff like Egyptology and stuff like westing, dying, end of things. The sun sets in the west, moon sets in the west, right? If you want to like start new things and bring about new things for yourself, abundance is more abundant to be facing east.
Done deal.
Cranial sacral session with a weighted blanket. That would be amazing.
Dude, yes, I would, and I'm gonna have to do that.
I feel like I must be really missing out on the weighted blankets here because
apparently
we don't even like people don't comment about a lot of stuff, but weighted blankets they're like, oh, they're the best, man. We should that's this podcast is about weighted blankets now forever. Where do I buy them? What's the best kind? What do I need? There's some kind of formula for weighted blankets or something, right? Like it's supposed to be some percentage of my weight or something like that, and it's all sciencey.
Like that. Okay,
do I have to build a spaceship around it and do a cranial sacral session in order to fall asleep, or is it like can I just?
No, but it makes everything better, bro. It makes everything better. Just like drugs, right?
Okay, so it's just like I need the blanket, and then I just need to start. Like, I mean, I'll even bring it on the podcast. I'll just lay underneath the blanket like this, and then we'll make the podcast better.
Yeah, let's cuddle.
Well, I mean, it sounds like I'm about to be making a cape out of a weighted blanket, so I can keep it around with me all the time. So if you ever find me, I'm just like, we can just dive down. We're good. There you go.
it's super worth it, man. It's getting a hug from the other side. It's really incredible. I've also got okay, so
Seriously
I've
though,
also
is
got
there like some kind of thing? Is there like a specific weight you're supposed to get? Because obviously, if I got like I don't even know how big these things come. If it was too
yeah.
much,
So
it would be
okay,
uncomfortable, right?
so I got a 60 by 80 and it's 30 pounds, and I think that might be on the higher end for some people. I know Joanna was saying she wished she had got
But you're
25
like
pounds.
608 feet tall or something, right?
Yeah, just about 6'6".
Okay,
So,
yeah,
but
it's close to
I'm
608
so
feet.
yeah, close enough, man. Wait till we meet in person. How tall are you?
I'm like 5'10" or 11 or 6 foot or something. I don't really
All
know.
right. Yeah, that's not bad. I think
I'm
Frank's
not I'm
like,
not about that
he's
measurement
not
life,
short.
really.
I wonder how tall Frank is. Frank's 5'9", 5'10", maybe? I don't know.
I
But
need
yeah, that's all
20 to
good. That's not
25
super
pounds.
short.
Okay, so if he says 20 to 25 pounds, I need 20 pounds because I think I weigh like 38 pounds or something.
Yeah, well, yeah,
Total.
you might need like 15, 20 pounds, but yeah, it's definitely.
I'm
Oh, she
sure I
says
need a
tall
light
as
one. I'm
20 to
positive I
25.
need a light one.
So go
So
20. What's 20?
20
What's
pounds.
20 to you? What's number
What's
two or
20
20 to
to
you
me?
if you're reducing it down? Yeah. Like for numerology, gematria, whatever your own meanings.
What is 20 reduced down to? 20 is just a second reiteration of 0. So
20 is the second reiteration of
I
0.
really simplify numbers. Really, like
Yeah, no,
although
please,
like
like
I
elaborate.
like the gematria thing. It was very fun. I had a buddy
Yep.
that I really paid a lot of attention to. That was like, mm, well, huge degree from Yale and mathematics and stuff. He spent a whole lot of his time doing gematria now, and I don't really know. He kind of feels like a lost soldier in certain ways or whatever. So like
No,
I've kind
I
of chilled out on the
totally understand.
gematria.
No, I totally understand what you mean. So when I ask that, I mean like for me,
12
the
pounds, throw blanket size. Yeah, well, I mean, I'm only like
and
5'10",
that can
so I'm
make
like, if I'm
that can be a
under
case,
6 foot, I'm pretty sure I'm like half a man if I'm under 6 foot. So a throw blanket should be perfect for me, right?
and I'm
That's good.
608 feet. So yeah, that
Yeah,
should work.
it'll be good. It'll be. We're still gonna have to film with 2 cameras if you're ever around with me, just because you're like in the sky. You know what I mean?
That's all right. I can squat down. I'm kind of hunkered down
Nah,
like a
you're
Joe.
not. You're not that much taller than me. I'll just like Tom Cruise it or something. I'll stand on a box.
Dude, you know
You know
Tom
what
Cruise is I think
I mean?
5'7", 5'6", or 5'7". He's so tiny.
Oh yeah, he's super tiny. Go heavier for
Yeah.
various reasons. Has a lot to do with astral travel. Okay, explain yourself. How does the weighted blanket assist in astral travel? Very curious to hear about
Ooh,
that.
yeah. Is that on the YouTube chat? Because that's if that's coming through on your end on the live YouTube channel, it's not. Yeah, it's delayed here.
Yeah, it's on YouTube. It's delayed for you.
There it is.
I'm going for
Yeah.
that. Yeah, yeah, I
The
got it on YouTube.
live. Okay, that's fine. I just want to make sure why
So let's see,
went up.
astral travel. I mean, I guess I could understand. Like, it eases the anxiety, so like that leads to the idea that it would calm your mind. Like, you're not thinking about as many things that could happen for and at the lower levels.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
And really, I think like the astral travel predominantly about being able to focus what you're doing, really, and almost to the point of focusing on not doing at a certain level of it. But that gets weird sounding. But so I guess
Yeah. Yeah.
on that level, I could already see that. But I'd love to hear what this person Kala is saying. Is how's it help? The one I daily use is 12. So what do you use? It's heavier than 12.5 pounds too. Like, what's your heavier one? Your standard
She
20
said
to
that she.
25, I would imagine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Its attachment back into the body has to not get lost like an anchor. Do you actually astral travel so effectively that you feel like you will get lost? Really? I mean, like, that's is amazing if you do. I feel like if I even allow myself to focus too much on my astral travel, I get like too intoxicated by it and kind of like snap out of it even. So and then I'm just back in my body. Like I always end up back in my body, sort of unfortunately. Not lost
Yeah.
per se, but leap timelines. It's altogether possible that what I've been doing all my life is completely dangerous and I'm accidentally leaping timelines all over the place. I have no idea. That would be completely possible.
Maybe you
Sure.
need a way to blanket, bro. That's what's keeping you from being integrated. That's the work you need to do.
Yeah.
It's your spiritual work. Go buy an
I actually
weighted
didn't need to
blanket.
do any work. I just needed to do like enough to buy a weighted blanket and then bing bang boom, enlightenment, right?
So and even in that, that's funny because that's why like I buy things like that because I saw it as an avenue that helped me free up more of my nervous system or subconscious energy, attuning to potentially like, yeah, all the external stimulus or air even moving over in a different way, or I don't know, whatever. But for it to be pressed down and resting in that way, it more frees up more of like, yeah, my subconscious, I guess, to be more conscious and engage in things I consciously want to engage in inside of myself.
Hmm. Hmm. I just suddenly had this thought going back to you because I'm contemplating. I got the little balls spinning that
The
you're talking
Benoit
about,
balls,
right? The Benoit balls about the death question. I was sitting here going like, I wonder if the reason why I just don't even worry about that in astral travel is because like, well, I just don't care what happens next. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I don't care whether it's like another timeline or it's me or I'm a unicorn. Like, it really doesn't matter to me what I
Well,
end
and
up in
also,
next.
okay, so contrast that between where it sounds like you have found major benefit and have cared enough about where you don't care enough about astral travel to really develop that. You have developed lucid dreaming and found that to be really beneficial for you. Like, talk about that.
I mean, I wouldn't say I hadn't like honed astral travel either, though.
Like, whoa, 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 Aaron, make sure you don't put me
Yeah, I
too
mean,
far down on this
maybe, I
totem.
mean, maybe take it easy on that. Like, I've definitely spent a lot of time around that, and in a certain way, well, my personal belief, if we really want to go like full out with it, like, how do you think you're in your experience right now? Like, you're currently astral traveling. That's what you're doing, and you're always doing that. So we're all like, I mean, we're all astral traveling. We're all doing it. But how much awareness is it that you need of it in order to feel like you are quote unquote doing it? Some people just know things from certain things. Some people actually see it. Some people just feel it. Some people hear it. Some people I heard you talking at one point in time about like smell being one of the things that triggers memory the most, right? Like
Mhm.
triggers memory, like, well, so it reminds you of something and then you know that thing. So some people smell something and then they know, like, there's all kinds of integration of basically what you could call your astral travel that you tap into, but you just like you look at it in the way you look at it. But really, like, that's how
Yeah.
you're here. You're not really a human body. I mean, you're not. Like, that's provable by like a bunch of ways. You're not a human
Right.
mind. That's provable by a
Yeah.
bunch of ways. Even the idea that you're limited at whatever you would perceive as the next thing out of that, like human spirit or soul or whatever you call next, that's
Yeah.
probably not it either. That's also
Totally.
probably not it. You know, and you can probably get quite a ways outside of this. So, like, I don't really remember what I was talking about with
No,
that,
that's good.
to be
I'll
quite
jump
honest.
off. It's good.
Go ahead.
Good. All right. So then to me, it becomes like we've talked about this. So since that's something I haven't done yet, we've talked about different dynamics. And I've almost separated from my body or been in those states. You know, the separation or the high vibrating or just other moments that the veil's been just so thin. I feel like I'm just it's like it's almost this switching between I don't know, it's conscious and subconscious, dissociating from the ego in some way, but being present with your awareness. I don't know. There's like this very thin stillness point or something like a shift, just a slight phase
Sure.
shift or something, right? And so I've been very, very close to those dynamics, but haven't actually experienced it. And like you were saying too, so on one level, how much does it matter? Because
Mm-hmm.
what else, where you're putting your focus of awareness and whatnot. And then also the dynamic of all that matters in that dynamic is that I want it. So I'll have that experience, that also being a true dynamic subjective to each individual person.
Sure. Yeah, really just gotta want it bad enough to focus on it completely, I think. I mean, astral travel for me has been since birth. I saw my own birth, remembering crib coming off of the body. I mean, that's super awesome. I
No
feel like I
doubt.
don't have any memories from like 3 or something like that. Like until like 3, I remember something. But so like that's super cool. You know, I mean, like I'm really just speaking more like broad form. Like, what is even the human experience, right? Like that's astral travel, pretty much, right?
Uh,
So
all
astral
right.
travel is just what, like some other thing that you want to see that's not this. That really just kind of actually shows how much you buy into the idea that this is like your consensus reality. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
Like that something else is different than this thing, like in that regard, that you go from
Right.
here and then you travel to other place. That really, to me, that just says like you recognize yourself, identify yourself more here than there. But like,
Right.
I
So
guess
then,
in my own ideology, I don't really even look at like perspective like that. really.
So, okay, so how would you say then what is happening when someone puts their conscious awareness in this body and then
Uh,
but then astral projects and their conscious awareness is there but not necessarily in this body? Are they just shifting their focus of awareness
well,
into
I
a
mean, but
different
like they're the same body. They're just focusing into a different place, and
right. So
everything is
they're
just focused into a different place. Unless you're having two
right,
experiences at the same time, you know what
right.
I mean? Like, have you
Yeah.
actually split your experience into two? I mean, I've seen it with psychedelics. I'm not gonna lie, but like normally what people are
Yeah.
talking about is that like this experience turns off, the other one starts happening, pretty much,
Right, right,
and
right.
to me it just seems like a shift of focus. But I got
Yeah.
like, well, the whole kind of real methodologies I got into, like whatever you call it, deep meditation, astral travel, all stuff becomes the same thing inside there. It's all about
Yeah.
just putting more focus on something all the time, like being
Totally.
more and more focused and managing that focus by virtue of having more access to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's I literally think that's how we're here. So I think everybody's capable. You have different
Yeah.
stipulations about what makes it astral travel for you, and really all of them
Right.
are trainable.
It's
Like
funny.
they
Well,
really
it's funny
are.
because that's part of like the data collecting you were talking about earlier, right? So when I talk to people who, like Kala, the done it since birth, it's asking all these questions or finding out just and especially finding out from more people that seem to be able to do that from birth, what that means to like explain it to me because I haven't been there in a sense or shifted in that same way and everyone has different ways of describing it, right? But there do seem to be very legitimate consensus realities, that even in
Sure.
esoteric dynamics, meeting on astral levels, like having conscious, engaged, talking conversation meetings, and then, going back to their body, remembering everything they talked about in the meeting, not like a dream or whatever. So
Hmm.
there's, so that seems to also be a reality that I haven't been existing in consciously, which is fine. Like you're saying, do we need to? We are. I think all the things you're saying is also true. It's just interesting how it all exists, and it really does matter with your life experience, right? For someone who's never born, maybe even heard the word astral travel and wasn't born that way, doesn't matter to their experience at all. Someone else who's
Yeah, they're
born
never
with
gonna
it,
say, "Oh, I got here by astral travel," and they're never gonna say that.
well, then
So,
someone who's born with it, like Kala, that well, just some here, but and that she doesn't know anything but that. That's always been her reality, what someone else couldn't relate to at all, potentially, which is just
sure.
really interesting. Diversity of people that are here.
Yeah. And say so for me, all timelines run at the same time, and I can move through them with intention and pause any for healing or understanding. I mean, like I'm with this on all of them running at the same time. I mean, I think I even said last night that I think all things happen instantaneously. That you live in an instantaneous reality. So like pause them, make them instant, go slower, change the speed. Like yeah, that's because like it only happens when you're there. It doesn't happen without you. You're the awareness of the happening. So it's I don't you know that I'm with that 100. I think you can pause any of them. There's been references in pop culture, and then also like, well, some people just call themselves this, but the idea of like a time lord. Doctor Who brings this whole thing out. Like
Totally.
this is time is really like a thing that we're making happen, and we make it happen at different rates. If you enhance your like rate of perception, time seems like it slows down. It's pretty easy answer for why when I'm in like about to be in a car wreck, it seems like things go slower. I start snapshotting data much faster. Time is social. Time is very much so social too. Technically, everybody has just been agreeing with the clock all of the time, and some of them agree with the exact same clock. And really, the only reason to actually use time is that social thing behind it. Is like, Aaron, let's do the podcast at 8 o'clock, and that
Right.
means some
And then
specific
start at
time.
8:15.
Right, yeah, and then we're late. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. But like this time is social thing. Like I couldn't possibly agree more. Like I had an experience a while back where to mince on it. When I came back from the experience, I felt like I was very very concerned about how much time had gone past, and I realized
Uh-huh.
very quickly like I need to just look at the clock and just go with that, and that will get me out of this. And when I did that, immediately I'm like, you've always just been looking at the clock and agreeing with it. Like, wait, oh my gosh, like the clock is not right. I'm just agreeing with it. Like, wait a minute.
Wow. Yeah, what a
This
cool way to
is
see that.
what? Wait, okay. I mean, don't think about that too much. You're trying to get out of this little problem right now. I mean,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
well, I'm agreeing. I've never looked at a clock the same after that. You know what I mean? I really haven't. Like,
Cool.
it's
Right.
just that's just what time the clock says it is, and I try to keep that the same time that everybody else's clock says. You know?
Yeah. It's interesting. Andrew Bartzis talks about something I heard and just it resonated with me, so I adapted that kind of energy or frequency in the morning and that paradigm, my own ways of doing it. But um, when you're coming out of dream state, that being incredibly sacred time, right? I mean, there's obviously ways to anchor and seed and to wait, you can wake up without an alarm and or you have a job that doesn't do any of that anyway.
Sure.
But as you're waking up, transitioning into the dream state, staying perfectly still and settled and at peace, and that staying in that in between state, and just set it. We can do all sorts of things in that place, but that being a place to actually continue on in your dream, or to then engage your dream, or to anchor it into more of the cellular long-term memory, or anyway, there's a lot that happens in that space. But the point is, it's a time outside of fraud time. Before looking at the clock, you don't have an alarm going off. You don't have any context for time.
Mm-hmm.
You just be present in that time until it feels over, basically.
Yeah.
Whatever that means for you.
Yeah. Interestingly, I started getting and like unintentional plug here, but I started using Alpha Brain for a period of time, and like
yeah, keep going.
I used it, and then I just like I couldn't afford it at that point in time, so like I didn't use it after that, even though quite honestly it was great. But when I stopped using it, I started having these. Well, I would wake up into a hypnagogic state, right at like I wouldn't actually wake up, but I would shift out of like dream state, and I would be in this hypnagogic state where I couldn't really control what I was thinking about, but the rate that my brain and the efficiency that my brain was like processing information about like how I felt, what I needed to do about it, how my actions were influencing what I was doing. Like it was going so fast. Like, well, I mean, the space is still there. Like I've kind of made a practice around it, but like this space, it popped up after that. But I think this space is available for everyone, and it's exactly because of what you're talking about. Like since you're coming out of this dream state, and then you're not really in the place where you keep time yet. You're in this weird spot where like time really actually doesn't matter. And when it really actually doesn't matter, things happen at completely different rates, or at least they are perceived to. But I mean, well, I have kept time on this space before. Like I know where I'm supposed to be with outside stuff, or like I know what popped me to it, and then I like kind of held it.
Okay, it's interesting too. So like this weekend, I was out with my siblings, and me and no one else or whatever they want people to not know. No one did.
Just tell the story without the people. You were out of the place. What's up?
Yeah. But we were having this conversation about time, and my sister started talking about time, and she went into this really cool dynamic about things these like perceptions she had about time, and just started rolling with it, right? And I'm like, awesome. 30 years I've known you, and like I've never seen this side of you, like this deeply organic, well thought out, like from her soul, right? Whatever that means. You could tell it was like more than just like talking about shit, right? Or even shit she thinks is cool, like whatever. It was like really deep, like about time, right? It is the things we were talking about, and being a shared agreement and a construct in that way, like a shared agreement, agreed upon thing. It's not, but she said it was interesting because as she's talking to me, when she was bearing her soul in that way, or expressing herself in that way, that was just seemed more deeply connected to something, to like her beingness. It was very slow for me, right? It was a very present moment, because I feel like I've met her, right? Like my presence or awareness of the listening skills, but more than that, like just awareness of like seeing her there, created this time where time slowed way down. And it was very just awesome. And then I didn't even come to too much awareness of that until she said, but it sucks because so when you're having a good time, time flies, and when you're having a crappy time, time goes slow. And I said, and that's why I said, actually, I said, I think that's just, we believe that, so we create that reality. I said, right now, time is going very slow for me. This whole last few minutes has gone for hours, like in quality, I guess. of a conversation or engagement. Interesting.
I really would be interested to hear what you mean by you use the clock for messages, like, because that doesn't sound like you just like see a time and it means something to you. It's, it sounds like more than that, like sending them or something like that, which would make sense.
Yeah, that'd be so interesting. So like okay, so higher self dynamics, if you will.
Sure.
So I've thought of it like potentially if we're gonna put it into the code matrix and that whole paradigm. So it's like
Hang on, let me boot up my computer. Okay.
Oh yeah, bummer. When we use that when we find in these the avatars or the residual self image, right, in the matrix, which I like that paradigm too. That when we start to value numbers, because we can put our awareness anywhere, that's part of the problem. We can distract ourselves from ourselves with shit, with stuff, right? Whether it's social media stuff or just people in general, or just habits or things, but we don't ultimately feel connected to ourselves, whatever that means. That's all that shit. So like, shit. What was I saying?
You didn't get there yet. I don't know.
No, what was I starting to say? What was I saying right before that?
I don't have it. Somebody in chat will have to do it.
I know.
Do you interpret the time with numerology, then relay that for messages?
Okay. Finding value to so when we choose to give our value to, like when I found the ancient the 22 letters, Hebrew letters, and the 5 dimensions to each letter, all that stuff we talked about, it gave value to numbers. So 2 to me, I always think of Beit. So the second letter in the Hebrew alphabet, which we talk about Lev, and the Beit is the innermost room or inner space or an inner cloister. And it's interesting. There's a show I was watching this summer. I think I'd stop by my parents and see my grandma and stuff. They live up there and hang out. They were watching this show. Oh gosh, what's it called? I don't know. The Umbrella Family or something. I don't know, something like that. But each of the kids had some form of a superpower, and they grew up in this kind of secret, spy, I don't know, whatever deal. Now they're kind of adults and like figuring this stuff out. But each one of the first 5, I think at least, or went through like 7. Each one of them, like the number 1, Aleph in Hebrew, which the picture is an ox. This guy was massive, like hulked out, or like Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde thing, right? Like ox, big, strong dude. I forgot what the second one was. Third was Gimel, which is to be raised up on a camel, or to be seen, or to be a star. She's a star. She could actually charm people. She could speak or whisper words that would charm them, and they would, like, NLP or just whatever hypnagogic stuff, just from her words. Number 4, I think he died, but he was a ghost, so he's always present, and only one of the other ones could see him. And number 4 in the Hebrew is Dawit's a doorway, which is a portal. Right. So but each one of the letters are lining up, which is interesting to me, because if that's all code in the matrix, like these simple, like actual numbers have pictographic meaning that carries resonance, even just in the collective unconscious, and it comes out through creative expression, even if they don't know what they're doing, or it's intentional in some like Masonic Hollywood level, and they put these things that I don't, who knows? Well, who cares really? It's just interesting to see the correlations and the meanings of the numbers. But so when we actually give value to them, then our higher selves can be like, oh, they're paying attention to numbers. Now let's play with the code of the matrix of their daily lives or whatever. And so we can communicate in a way that's not like in 3D coming down in a booming voice or whatever that means. Some kind of minor, more minor connection.
Yeah. And it's interesting, because that's kind of what Carl is saying here, that he's kind of doing is nudging that probability that they would have kind of this synchronicity, it seems like. It's a mix of numerology and vibration and number, and then the intensity, the frequency they show. Then base it on thoughts, feelings, or experiences, and follow the impulse to next thing to do. Yeah. I think especially all the astral stuff, like it's so important to just be guided by your intuition, especially for things like that. Like logic, you can logic everything, but it's not really actually that valuable in that case.
Right.
It's really not.
Well, so it's funny. So what I like about that is that there's a logical connection, and I just do it like for something to entertain my mind. Like I'll see numbers and I'll just like you did it. You did it yesterday. We were talking about December 25th, right? We're like trying to find meaning in it because apparently that's a significant
Right,
date,
yeah.
right? And so, all right, I guess we'll go down to the code and see if there's maybe something possibly relevant there. Okay, comes
Right.
out 10. Okay, I could see that. You know, maybe whatever, because I can't find any more overt
Yeah,
correlations,
it could
right?
be, I guess. Yeah,
But so what's cool though is I do find repetitive numbers with certain people,
sure.
right? And certain dynamics or certain emotions or certain things I'm feeling or processing. I'll see that in my own day or with a certain person, and it'll indicate to me like, oh, there's a part of me that's processing here or
Hmm.
coming up for healing, or I don't know, some things coming up. So the numbers just then become a way for me to play a game with myself in a sense. So it's not
Yeah.
like everything depends on the numbers. It's just another one of many ways I play with my many ways I play with myself.
It's just another one of many ways I play with
So true.
myself. Oh my gosh. Yeah, well, you got to have plenty of ways to play with yourself. Otherwise, you won't be able to be in touch with
Novelty.
your inner child. You know what
Yeah. No, really, man. Like
I mean?
really just being on I was on a road trip recently and we pulled over synchronistically somewhere and there happened to be a baseball field there and being able to go off on into the baseball field just because, and then it was a really cool day. It was a really cool picture of the sun, the clouds. Yeah, and I think I was telling you about this the other day too. So I went to the pitcher's mound and just began to reenact like pitching, and I haven't done this in like at least a decade. I grew up playing baseball, and I played pitcher I think for a year, but I did it all on my own, and catcher and first base and whatever. So I just
You
ended
were
up
the
going to the
whole
different.
team by yourself, huh? You
It
must have
was
ran
pretty.
fast.
No, I ran so awkward and slow, man. Even to this day, I think I'm do okay, but I have to think about when I'm running. I mean, I play basketball recreation. Well, not with the COVID shit going on, but I play basketball recreation. I try to do that in the
Yeah, you're
spring and the
cheating at
summers.
basketball, though.
Go because I'm so tall.
Yeah, 608 feet tall. It's too tall to play basketball. The rim's only 10 feet, man.
No doubt. Yeah. But being on the baseball mound and then just like I don't know, narrating to myself and just having a good time, but reenacting the
Sure.
movements and the memories, and it brought up like childhood just stuff, like the feeling of being me, not just a child, the feeling
Sure.
of what it felt like when I was a kid on the mound again, and just to kind of integrate that, it was almost like snapping a string between a past
Hmm.
version of me because I was recreating the physical motion in a physical space. It like
Yeah.
snapped the string to like bring all the healing that I've experienced now, whatever that means, the wholeness, the more wholeness than I am now, whatever, to back to that child version of me, just by
This
doing the
takes my
thing that
mind
I
a
was enjoying
very
doing.
interesting place because I've spent most of my travel in my life has been trying to get somewhere that someone I had heard about before had already been, so that I
Okay.
could experience what it was like to be them and really kind of further cohere with what their life was to understand it
Totally.
better. And
Yeah.
like it's very, very functional, like very, very functional. So like standing in
Right.
someone's footsteps, right? Like or
Right.
walking in their footsteps, it's very, very, very functional. So
You can ride on my
we'll team up on
shoulders.
air with
Yeah.
that. Yeah, like that's probably what we're gonna need for sure. And like my foot's got problems now, so we're gonna need your feet. So it sounds like a solid setup.
Just shut up and heal your psyche. Stop being a bitch, and we'll play basketball.
Yeah, you're right. You're
And
actually gonna
then
get dunked on even if you are 608 feet tall because I can fly. So, anyways, moving on.
there you go. It happens, man. White man can jump.
They
Yeah.
can
This
sometimes.
is been there, done that. Marsha Summers, you dunked on someone 608 feet tall? Probably. Some of us are pretty clumsy.
Yeah, I don't think that's what she was saying. She had been there and done, but maybe she probably
Uh-huh.
could. She could dunk on you though. I feel like she could take you to the house probably.
Yeah, and who knows, man? I haven't
Probably.
played in a while. Yeah. So, but yeah, so snapping a line, that's interesting too. It makes me think of entanglement in a different way. You know, 'cause there's a lot of ways
Hmm.
to image that, but bringing our awareness to a so we're in the present, we're always in the present. So whatever we do with our awareness, we choose to focus on the past, like regret and things can hold us back or whatever. And then what is it? Anxieties caused by worrying about the future, you know, to oversimplify those. But
Sure.
so we put our awareness on the past with the intention of either finding some kind of positive benefit in the present, right? Positive memory, positive experience, or just following our own heart, not even consciously knowing why we're doing those things, or
Yeah.
following a childlike version of our heart, I guess, right? Different than we're stopped here. Okay, maybe I'll have a cigarette, chill, look at the sun, cool, do some stretches. It's
I think
like,
when
I
we
don't
try
think,
to identify it as a specific format of the heart, we're really just like worried that whatever format we're using isn't going to be the right way. When really, like, the way that we do it in that moment, I think is the way that we need to do it. So, you know, it may
sure.
not be the perfectly morally right. Everybody else might not like it. It might not be the right
Right,
decision,
right.
but like
So thinking
it goes the
internally
right place.
from our own hearts, like in a decision, I guess in that dynamic, trying to parse my own nuances internally, right? So a lot of my talking is trying to process my own thought processes, and it's nice to have, people to mirror things off of. Um, so they're like options, like practically that came to me in very subtle ways, and like I feel like trillionths of a second sometimes. Some of this is like really trying to slow down what seemed to happen in my, if I could put logic in a linear time between when I made the decision and when I was presented with that decision, even in my own awareness.
Yeah.
And so, so I get out, I can smoke a cigarette, do some stretches. I love being in the sun. It just feels great. I'm happy to just the wind, the air, like it really satisfies my soul in a lot of ways. Totally content, happy. It's very valuable to me just to get out and do that. Great. And
Sure.
then there's another part of me that's like, ooh, but I want to go on the baseball field. And like, well, okay, why not? And just going with that thing. Like, there's no
Sure.
wrong. It's just like
No.
me trying to figure out what I feel like would be more of the some part of my heart, if you will, or maybe a child memory or trauma or something. I don't even know, but it's a part of me that wants, has a desire to go play on the field. There's no reason not to. Why wouldn't I? And just trying to capitalize on those opportunities, it seems, to find some kind of deeper connection to myself.
Yeah, and even like analyzing that statement, there's no reason not to. So, like, I mean, even
Right.
if there was one reason not to, would you do it then? What if there was five? What if
No,
there
so
was
that's
10?
like,
Like, maybe you
yeah.
should do it anyways, even if there's
Okay,
27
here's one.
reasons not to.
Here's
Like,
one.
it's
Here's
all,
a good
then
one.
you're playing the scales again. You're balancing shit out all day long, and like
Okay, check
that's just a big
check this
logical
out.
process. You're gonna do that
Okay,
forever, and then you'll
so
decide you're done at some point. Like,
when
it's
Angela and I were in Washington D.C. and we went to Washington Monument and then went to the Lincoln Memorial or Lincoln Monument, and in between we were in the car and she got this really beautiful pendant for scrying.
mhm.
Or I always call it scrying. Sorry, what else do you do with pendulum stuff? The applied kinesiology, the yes or no's, the what's that called?
I don't know what other people call it. It's just a format of divination to me, but
There, yeah, okay, yes. It's funny
pendulum
because,
divination. That's what I'm gonna call it.
and to me, that's just my understanding. That's your body, that's your subconscious and your body actually speaking through micro movements. So it's not you, it's not your conscious thought. It's just so that makes sense to me. It's a reliable form
Yeah,
of getting some form of additional layers of information because if your subconscious is taking in 95% of the data around us that never gets to our conscious mind. Yeah,
yeah.
muscle testing. Right, yeah.
But
So that
yeah, I can't call it muscle testing in my world though, because in my world, muscle testing first was holding something you know is good for you in one hand and holding
sure,
something that you're wondering if it's good for you in the other hand, and then
right.
observing that reaction to see whether or not that thing is good for you. Like, so I already have a thing for that.
Yeah,
But I
so
see how
my
there's a crossover, especially when you're talking like hypnosis, because you can create these ideomotor responses. You can even code those ideomotor responses through basically the suggestion to their subconscious mind, and then their subconscious will respond to you through like little twitches and stuff in those places. So I
right.
think the subconscious would probably be projecting anyways, like even if
Yes.
you just hold something there, it's the flipping the coin thing again, right? Like in a certain way, when you flip the coin, you already actually know which
Okay,
one you
all right.
want.
Okay, so let's fill this out together because I was processing through this in a way, and I think anyway, we'll see how it bounces off you. So so we were scrying about certain things, and one of them I said, okay, ask if because we didn't know if it was closed. We thought the monument might have been closed. The whole place was closed to the public, but you could park on the street and walk in, but the main parking spots, all that stuff was closed, and so people couldn't get on. And so we didn't know if we could get in there. So she scried. It said yes, which was great. I said, ask if I'm going to be able to get up on Lincoln's lap because that's what I wanted to do. I want to get
Hmm.
up on his lap, right? For whatever my own reasons are, like I want to get there. and it said no, right? And I'm like, well, all right. So the way I assessed that in the moment, I was like a little bummed, like, all right, I guess, but I'm like, okay, this is from my subconscious or her subconscious. It's more aware of, even if I'm not consciously thinking about it. There's probably security cameras everywhere. There's probably security guards. It's probably not allowed, blah, 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 blah. Okay. So it's actually probably a most probable answer. It just makes sense to me
Sure.
in that dynamic. And that's what's being communicated, if you will. Okay. But as we're approaching it, I'm like, I really want to get on his lap. And she goes, do it. Right? It's like, who knows? Because there wasn't a security guard around. I'm like, and there weren't barely any people around. I'm like, maybe I could pull this off, man. Why not? I want to do it. Why not? I'm not going to hurt anything. It's not going to get there to break
Yeah.
anything or tag it. Like
Yeah.
it's to be more present there. I mean, who gets to do that? There's something really powerful for me for sensual touch, physical contact with objects or people or items,
Sure.
And so I ended up going around the back. I mean, I sat in front of it for a while and I was just there, and then I ended up going around back, stepped over the ropes and was going around back, and I just grabbed it to climb up, and a security guard comes out and goes, "Hey!" And I was like, "Fuck!" Right? Like scared the shit out of me. Right? And so I came over and I just understood the situation. I said, "Hey, sorry." He's like, "What are you doing?" I said, "I just wanted to get closer to it. I wasn't going to tag it or anything." Kind of pat him on the shoulder. I said, "I really just wanted to be closer to it, man. Sorry. I know it's probably not allowed, whatever." And he's like, "Yeah, well, just, don't do that again." It was fine, but it's funny because how it worked out. So like it's that whole
Yeah.
dynamic. I feel like the way that the choices I made for the reasons I made them, to me, are interesting in that whole dynamic. And with when you put the actual pendulum dynamic in there, it's just all very fascinating data to me.
Yeah. So much to think about once you put all of them together.
Yeah, no doubt.
Hey, I do need to
So,
take like a quick bathroom break and get a drink and some other stuff. Like my throat feels like I'm gonna die, so I do need to go away for a moment, for a few moments.
AFK. I heard you almost say it. Yeah, it's all good.
Yeah.
I know the lingo now, bro.
All
All
right,
right,
I'll be
home
back in a bit.
monologue. Cool. All right, hey guys. Oh, we can even go big screen for a minute. Fancy. Cool. Okay, so what is something that I was interested in talking about? Unless someone's gotten something in the chat, we can go with that too. Let's figure out them here. Oh, this is one of the books I was mentioning yesterday, or booklets. God Man, the Word Made Flesh. Dr. George Carey. That's what I couldn't remember. It's printed 1920, so it's like a year off. But this is the one that goes through and breaks down the metaphors and the paradigms between, like, well, here, why don't I just randomly interject this and while he's leaving, or while he's gone, we'll do a little reading time. By the way, that is definitely something I'm going to be doing. What's up, Joseph Detz? What's up, man? How's it going? I'm going to be doing videos where I'm going to read through like the Essene Gospel of Peace and just kind of probably just have my own organic commentary on it in the moment, and some different things. I wanted to do it for a very, very long time. And I have videos on here before the podcast started, some with me and Nate, my coworker and one of my best friends, and then some with me and my father, and my brother, and talking about what we believe, different belief systems. That was a really cool conversation. And then some other ones of me just through my journey through the church and me processing my experiences. And that's all kind of just there. So, and I'll be doing other stuff, reading stuff, just because I think it's really cool. All right, let me find this one part. Here we go. Okay. This is the journey of Joseph and Mary. So on either side of the thalamus in the head is a gland known in physiology as the pineal on the posterior, and the pituitary on the anterior side of the thalamus. The pineal is cone-shaped and secretes yellow or golden fluid. The pituitary body opposite it is ellipsoid in shape and contains a whitish secretion like milk. The fluids that are found in both these bodies come from the same source, namely the colostrum, which means barrier or cloister, and is referred to as a cloister for very good reason, that a precious and holy thing is secreted or secluded there. Saint Claus or Santa Claus is another term for this precious fluid, which is indeed a holy gift in the body of each one of us. The precious fluid which flows down from the colostrum separates part going into the pineal gland and part into the pituitary body, and these being special laboratories of the head, differentiate the fluid from the colostrum, and it takes on the colors above mentioned, and in the pineal gland becomes yellow and has electric properties. The pituitary body, having the milk-like fluid, has magnetic properties. These two glands are the male and female, the Joseph and the Mary of the physical body, and are the parents of the spiritual son, born in the solar plexus of each human being, commencing about the age of 12. And then I believe according to, oh gosh, what's his name? I don't know, but I think it's when the moon is in your sun sign, and during those 3 days, that's when the secretion is at the apex point. And so if you're, as long as your cerebrospinal fluid isn't too acidic, your body isn't too acidic, and that's where the 7 deadly sins actually come from. It literally kills your life when you spill your seed on the ground as a man too often. It's a bioelectric fluid that you're having leave your body and not recycle as it's designed to normally. We just weren't taught that. Gluttony or debauchery or alcohol or certain different things because of what it does to your physiological state. And it gets in here and it'll show that if we would just not sin in that way, so not like hinder our bodies, especially during these times, that literally no sickness or disease would overtake us and we'd live for hundreds of years, which lines up with the other text too. These two glands are the male and female, the Joseph and the Mary of the physical body, and are the parents of the spiritual son. I already did that. At the age of 12. This yellow and white material, which is the milk and honey referred to in the Bible, the children of Israel, having been given the promise of a return to this land flowing with milk and honey, at last reaches the solar plexus via the semilunar ganglia, the Bethlehem of the physical body. In Hebrew, Bethlehem means house, Beth or bread, a house of bread, l'chaim, bread. I am the bread of life, said the allegorical Jesus. And the solar plexus is the thimble-shaped depression, a cave or a manger, and in this is deposited the psychophysical seed or holy child born of this immaculate conception. The psychophysical seed is also called fish, as it has the odor of a fish and is formed in the midst of the waters, the pure water. Jesus is a fish in the midst of the waters, said St. Augustine. Before birth, the human fetus floats like a fish in the fluids by which it is surrounded. And as it is with the child formed on the generative plane, so it is with the spiritual child born in the solar plexus, the Bethlehem. Joseph and Mary, by furnishing the material for the spiritual child, which was to redeem the child or body formed in generation, paid the symbolic redemption money. Holy Ghost, Greek for breath, the pneuma, the breath descended in the pneumogastric nerve into the solar center, enters the manger where Joseph and Mary are, and where is Jesus, the seed, literally conceived by the Holy Spirit. Cool shit, huh? All right, hold on. There's more. It's really good. Zach's still AFK. There's an automatic procedure within the human body which, if not interfered with, will do away with sickness, trouble, sorrow, and death as stated in the Bible. Truly, mankind, or the natural man, seeks many ways and means to prevent the upright, perfect, automatic way from accomplishing that whereunto it was sent. The natural man forever seeks pleasurable sensation, which is at enmity with God, physical sensation, the pleasures of sin for a season, or limited duration, referred to by Paul, are under the law, or below the solar plexus. Hence, he that is led by the Spirit is not under the law. The 21st letter of the Hebrew alphabet, Shin, or Shin, lacks one of the complete alphabet, Tav, which is the 22nd letter, meaning the cross. Herewith we are given a few of the Greek and Hebrew characters that have been translated sin or falling short. And he goes into some of the Hebrew different words. In Greek, we find the word written as hamartia and some other words. Any act coming under the meaning of sin retards or prevents the autonomic action of the seed, which, if not interfered with, lifts up a portion, or 1/10, or tithe, of the life essence, oil, or secretion that constantly flows down the spinal cord, a straight and narrow way. This transmutes it, thus increasing its power manyfold and perpetuating the body indefinitely, or until the ego desires to dissolve it by rates of motion set in action by its inherent will. What a fascinating, I agree. I think it's super profound. There's a little bit more. It's so good. And to me, this is what a great way to help connect all the dynamics in the Bible to our actual physiology and things believed way beyond that, you know, in astrology and understanding those things. So let the reader observe. So this is okay. Let the reader observe that each of the 66 books, as well as an almost countless number of ancient books of all the races and languages, teach the same mathematical and physiological facts. What a way to say that, right? Sorry, it's not just metaphor. Like, all right. He says, man has turned the mighty power he possesses to every object and principle of force in the universe except himself, the greatest miracle of all. When man focuses his divine thinking lens upon himself, he will realize that he is an epitome of ultimate cosmic energy. Then the heavens will roll together as a scroll and reveal the real man as the Lamb of God that taketh away the sins of the world. I'm going to read this part again because I rewrote it. Man has turned the mighty power he possesses to every object and principle of force in the universe except himself, the greatest miracle of all. When man focuses his divine thinking lens upon himself, he will realize that he is an epitome of unlimited cosmic energy or unlimited potential. As Zach talks about. Dude, that's huge. For me, that's such a huge, like I've read that to so many people. And there's so much more in here. Just that's like what a great epitome of what the book is. And that's 1920. That's what's fascinating. I mean, come on, man. This is 1920. Manly P. Hall, if you've never looked up his stuff, he's got an excellent one. I post on Christmas. I try to post around Christmas every year, last few years. On the solar, and we were talking about this yesterday too, on the winter and solar solstice, and then the relations to the religions and the holidays, and he gets into the astrotheology of all, and it's beautiful, and the archetypes and the Jungian dynamic. But Manly P. Hall is one of the greatest like teachers and instructors of our time when it comes to a lot of that stuff, the astrology, connecting it to the text. I mean, he's a master Mason, but in the ways, you know, there's a lot of stuff with the Masons that's pretty shitty stuff, man, really bad stuff. Whatever. That I think a lot of that's crumbling, going away. That's being dealt with. Some of the principles and some of the older dynamics of Masonry were leading people to be better human beings in a profound way, like at the deepest levels, not with the darker overlays and the other things that you know it became later. So that's the thing. It's not like somebody says they're Mason, you can't just assume like, oh, bad, or oh, like, you know, there's just so much there. There's so much more there that's so good. Anyway, so he's just an incredible instructor. And so his materials are online. They're really good. And he goes through this kind of stuff too. And I think he died in the last 10 years or so. Most of his stuff's, you know, 40s, 50s, or 50s, 60s, 70s. I don't know, whatever. Yep. Gonna light the cigarette. Here's something else that's interesting in the book I had earlier. So I saw this flipping through. So using the paradigm of good and bad being more accurately thought of, you'd say translated to, but thought of conceptually as functional or dysfunctional, is this thing that I'm considering as good or bad. Is it functional or dysfunctional to my goals or pursuits, or to my beingness, whatever that may mean? And it says here, the way it interprets the verse. There it is. Nope. Not where it is. Okay, so he's forbidding them to eat from the fruit, the tree of knowledge of good and evil. But he tells them, not that your eyes will be open to good and evil, or right or wrong. He says that your eyes, from eating from that your eyes will be opened, and you will be like the powers, or like the angels, or the Elohim, or gods, the powers, knowing function and dysfunction. Isn't that fascinating? Okay, anybody in chat? Wow, awesome. Cool. Anybody else got any thoughts or things they want to chat about, or things that are coming to mind? We're almost coming up on 2 hours here, actually. Let's see. Oh, there we go. 2 just came in. So see, astrology right now and how planets are currently aligned is very similar to the 1920s. Interesting. I just read that too. Huh. Yeah, 100-year cycles of things probably. Yeah, there's lots of cycles. Okay, let's see. Like the intense awakening energy I keep hearing is similar and strongly awakening, and it hasn't been this intense since the 1920s. Yeah, like I said, some 100-year cycles. I've been binge watching the Leo King on YouTube. What's the Leo King? Is that the no, I don't know who the Leo King is. Is that a YouTube channel person? Or kid show? It sounds like a kid show. Leo King. Tomorrow, by the way, we are going to be having on someone I'm not sure who it is. Zach knows her well. He can talk about her a little more, but we're gonna be talking about Arcturians and Arcturus and that dynamic. That'll be the whole focus of the show. Hopefully we're gonna get Frank on too, because I know he's had some experiences I've had and Zach has too, and more than that, I think we've got a lot to talk about. That I think it's just going to come out during that conversation, so that'll be really interesting. Very much looking forward to that. Well, I guess since I've got you captivated, let me show you a little what's on my wall. So some of this is pretty obvious; it speaks for itself, right? I talked about this the other night. This is more just like so. What was it saying in that book that the lower nature chakras are the like the pleasures of the flesh that when they're not in balance ultimately is the point of the problems. So like don't have sex, or it goes the other direction where they become eunuchs or celibate, or yeah, look how well that's worked out for the Catholics. So you can't just cut it off. It's still part of your system, right? So you find it in harmony and balance and healing in a healthy dynamic. Oh, he's an astrologer on YouTube. Cool. So let's see. Keep that up there for now. So this is someone breaking free from the old habits and old patterns and old cycles. Actually, I'll pull that off for a second. From just the things that have hindered them and dysfunctional in their life from living the life they want to live and whole and true to their heart and that whole, dynamic. And then hummingbird and going into the sacred geometry, flower of life, which is a 64 tetrahedron reflection that's been found engraved on things that are 10,000 years old, like laser engraved. So, put that in your pot and smoke it. I'm still smoking it, trying to figure out what that all means. I actually put this upside down on accident, but I think it's cool. It works. So it's the kitten looking at his reflection on the floor of a tiger, right? Him as a tiger, and seeing ourselves as we truly are, seeing each other after the spirit, which is the verse on the bottom of this one. But it's flipped upside down, which is just interesting because that is, this is who we are. Sometimes we see ourselves as this, but this is who we are. I don't know. It's interesting. Like Quantum Mind, this whole poster breaks down. We'll probably break that down at some point. And the Lania Kia. Actually, since what else is still in there? That's obviously in here. Okay. Dragon Ball Z. Oh, dude, I still love the show. I just found out I don't know, like I think 2 years ago, 3 years ago, they started the series again, or maybe longer. I had no idea because I was super into it when it was originally out. I remember for me, look, okay, Dragon Ball Z is a super spiritual experience, right? Or major, like, deep, life-changing, emotional anchor point of experience. I used to watch the show every day with my friend in the neighborhood across the street. We'd come watch it like every day after school. And it's on Toonami, man. And some scenes that like the newer version, the Dragon Ball Super that's come out, they cut out a lot of the fluff or the stuff that just like when they'd power up for episodes, it would just take forever. But there's a crutch point when Goku, the main character at the bottom, you can just see his black hair up top. He becomes the first version of a Super Saiyan, which is it's just kind of out of the screen, which is to the there, right? And then these are all the different transformations he takes over time and throughout the series and the new series, all the way up to Ultra Instinct, which is interesting. But the Super Saiyan dynamic was when he went there for the first time, it was Legend. There's a legendary Super Saiyan who will be stronger than any other being in the universe, and Vegeta goes on monologues about all that way too often. And it turns out not true. He thinks it's him. And then Goku finally does it, right? That he finally freezes starts killing all his friends, this final moment, and he goes into this rage and transforms into this blonde-haired, blue-eyed, like Thor-like god, right? The Super Saiyan. And then there's different progressions of that. And in the new series, which is really interesting, when they get more specific on it and they're teaching these other Saiyans from another universe, they get into a universal battle royale. That's a really fascinating show. Multi-universe. There's 13 universes, and or sorry, 12 universes, and there's a partner, like a masculine, feminine, or brother sister universe for the tiger and the kitten representing inner child, and tiger as knowledge and empowered being. Yeah, totally. I can see that for sure. Cool. Yeah, calls his love, Samantha love. Yeah, that's cool. Oh, look, you guys are becoming friends in the chat. That's so cool. And so with Goku transforming Super Saiyan, so they said this time to focus all your energy, or when you're powering up whatever, on the middle of your back, and concentrate it there until it then from there spreads out and consumes like your whole vessel, and they transform and power up to this other dynamic, which is interesting because that's what the backside of either your heart maybe, or your solar plexus, because it's blonde, which is yellow, and the solar plexus and your ego in a sense being amplified, especially through rage. They're using the root chakra energy, amoral in the sense. They're using that energy to bring this transformation. And when they go to the legendary Super Saiyan, the difference is they go to a blind rage, and so it's just like the Hulk, right? And then, but they're able doing the inner work too, like in their own psyche and the karate or taekwondo stuff, being able to manage their own psyche as well, until ultimately Ultra Instinct is getting to a place where he's able to. It's not about training and becoming faster. It's about becoming to be able to become thoughtless and just respond in the moment, and to and so the whole show plays out really well. And so to me, that's all metaphorical too of our own DNA epigenetic upgrades. I do think these kind of things, being superheroes, I think it's all very real, very much coming. It's just a matter of time, really. I think, and then, how do we get there faster? I don't think it's about faster. I think it's just a reality that's coming, and we all will get there on our own time and pace as we're supposed to get there. But that's something for me personally that draws a lot of my excitement, or generates a lot of excitement, thinking about those dynamics in ways that I can put myself more in alignment with that reality that I think is very real right now, not just in the future, but right now. So doing the things in my own psyche, doing the things in, placebo belief catalysts, or diet, just different things, eventually not smoking. For me, I just balance it out with, I'm always doing more steps forward for myself than I'm taking backwards. And even with this brings me a lot of joy and relaxation. I only started almost exactly a year ago. And, it's something I know myself well enough to know this is a phase in the season. And I listen to my body at times. There's times I go days without smoking, especially when I'm just like focusing on other things, but for the most part, I smoke daily. And so, oh, you guys are saying all nice things to each other in the chat back and forth. So nice. Then the other poster, the Laniakea. See if I can actually lift it up. So that's our super cluster of it's our super cluster of galaxies right there. And where it says you are here, that's our local cluster of galaxies. And then this is our super local cluster or something. But it looked to me like a heart in Laniakea, and that's where we are. That was in Nature 2014. I think that's pretty awesome. Let's see. Some still working on the courage to come forward. I'm sure superheroes are here already, for sure. Are you a superhero, Kala? You've been astral projecting since you were a baby. Look, I think she's alluding to it, guys. Or superpowers. Yeah, totally. Yeah, and I would agree. And I think, to me, that's not just like, that's not a new idea. It's an old concept. And, even Christ and Horus and all those different dynamics too. But even in the native traditions and in the Aborigines too, shape-shifting is very common. Teleportation still to this day, and things like that are common human abilities. They say we have just forgotten, and also this is the time where our DNA is awakening. So all that stuff makes sense to me from multiple places or sources. And then just my own knowing this and experiences, my own meditations and mapping out my own body and my own engagement with myself, those things continue to seem to resonate. The more I tune into my own DNA, the more I'll have experiences where I remember, not just have a random thought or whatever. I remember things. I reassemble to remember, reassemble, parts of ourselves. What else is on there? Oh, yeah, that's another Goku one. And this is I wonder if Zach's familiar with this, the Robbie body charts, where beliefs affect your anatomy. And it gets through right side masculine, its generality, left side feminine, receiving and trust for the left side of the body in general, it looks like the feminine dynamic, and then doing or believing or belief for masculine. There's a lot of interesting stuff. There's stuff on the other side of my place too. I plan on making my entire unit here. It's a 1-bedroom loft with 16-foot ceilings because of the loft. Covered floor to ceiling with posters, tapestries, which I'm probably 80% there already. And then my so even like the workspace, regular space, will be kind of like a dream creation space, like I guess lucid dreaming type space. Just there's a lot of different concepts and things and timelines and geography, and there's a lot of things I'm interested that connect. And so doing that, and then having a totally separate like dream realm for my loft bedroom area with tapestries and a spiral dynamic. So you got to walk in. And then anyway, I've got a lot of stuff. I've got an inclined bed that I'm working on, a solid piece of sequoia slab that I routed out a groove for my spine so I can put salt or different crystals or things in there. And it's at a 0.618 or 618 degree incline for Fibonacci dynamic, and that's how the Egyptians used to sleep, and your body operates tremendously better, especially your nervous system, sleeping at a slight incline. There's a lot of cool shit that I want to do just because it excites me. It's fun to do that stuff and then see the ways, like even like Zach was talking earlier, being able to flip around, just to start doing that tonight, flip around and sleep head towards the east, right? And then adjust my intentions accordingly based on what he's saying and starting something new and creating something new and letting the energy flow, just even in my own visualization or engagement, going to bed, Let's see, ready to find and hone my superpowers. Yeah, no doubt. Hold on. Zach's messaging me. Yeah, cool. No worries. I'll close it out, Zach. Yeah, cool. Ready to find home my superpowers. Yes. So I'm sure you already are, just even the awareness of it. And then in your own meditations or whatever, being able to engage just that thought and like, well, what are my superpowers or where are they and where can I enhance them or hone them? And sometimes it's just like deep intuition or things that aren't necessarily overt superpowers. But dude, I'm ready. I'm ready for the times when levitation starts happening. It's just like, okay, cool. I knew that was real. That's helping me understand other things about myself. It's not like running and telling people. It's like I'm ready for that to be real. If it comes up in conversation, it does. But it's like it's not fascination with the thing. It's excitement that it's finally here. Great. Now, how can we do that, or how can we go? Nope, that is my phone. All right. Yeah, hold on. Let's see. Call us, said, "Girl, you got to hit me up. I'll help you." Awesome. Oh, Aurora. Hi, Aurora. I miss you too. Oh, I love you guys so much. Okay, cool. Well, I think we're gonna call it a night for tonight. Like I said, we've got the Arcturian dynamic conversation happening tomorrow. That'll be really interesting because Zach and I have talked a bit about that off air, I think too, just more in just our lots of conversations. And I know Frank and I have, and anyway, there's a lot. It's going to be really interesting, be really good. So that'll be tomorrow. Yeah, more to come. This is every night. I don't even know what to do to close. Like, whatever. We'll see you tomorrow, right? Thanks for watching. Aurora smiled so big. Oh, good. You have a beautiful smile, Aurora. You should smile. I like it. Okay, so oh wait, let's see. There should be a Facebook group to go with the podcast. Zach's the man on that right now, and I think that's coming. We've been shocked that like this just kind of happened. We decided to go every day, you know, and then he made the graphics, and then we got the channel already set up, and like it just kind of started rolling. So that's on the ball, and that'll be cool because then yeah, we can continue to have conversations on Facebook and go from there too. So that's in the works. Thank you for saying. Okay. Yep. Wonderful. Have a good night, guys. Take care, and we'll see you tomorrow.